https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=-k _1FC3L09G. I sat beside my ex's mom on a date. No one expected what happened next. Tôi ngồi cạnh mẹ của người yêu cũ trong một buổi hẹn hò. Không ai ngờ chuyện gì sẽ xảy ra tiếp theo. 1. Opening: A quiet man in a loud world. At 32, Nathan Cole is a single father living a predictable life in Seattle. He works hard, raises his young daughter alone, and carries the quiet wound of a failed relationship with a woman who once told him he was too safe to be unforgettable. Since then, Nathan has buried himself in work and fatherhood, convincing himself that steady love may never be enough for anyone. Months earlier, while dating that woman, he had briefly met Vivian Hale, a brilliant 30-year-old CEO, elegant, composed, and admired by everyone around her. Beneath her success, Nathan sensed something else: loneliness, pressure, and the exhaustion of always having to be strong. 2. Rising action: one unexpected dinner. Half a year later, Nathan sees Vivian alone at an upscale restaurant, clearly waiting for someone who never arrives. She hides the humiliation well, but he notices the disappointment in her face. Against his better judgment, he walks over and offers her company. What begins as a simple conversation turns into something far deeper. Nathan sees the woman behind the title, and Vivian sees a man whose quiet strength feels more real than the flashy world she lives in. Days later, they meet again by chance, and that accidental reunion leads to dinner, private conversation, and a growing emotional connection neither of them expected. The more time they spend together, the more impossible it becomes to deny that something powerful is growing between them. 3. Climax: a love that changes everything. The connection between Nathan and Vivian crosses the line from emotional to undeniable. But the feelings come with serious consequences. Vivian is still tied to a high-profile engagement that has long been empty, and Nathan knows getting involved with a woman like her could pull both of them into public judgment, scandal, and pain. Still, Nathan refuses to offer her a half-lived love. He tells her clearly that if she chooses him, it must be real. Forced to confront the truth about her life, Vivian makes the boldest decision she has made in years. She walks away from the relationship and public image that were suffocating her. But the fallout is immediate. The people around them are shocked, critical, and unforgiving. What felt honest in private suddenly becomes explosive in the outside world. 4. Resolution: choosing love in the middle of the ruin. Nathan and Vivian do not hide. They face the consequences together. Vivian steps out of the life that had been built around appearances and control, while Nathan stands beside her with total commitment. Though gossip spreads and relationships around them fracture, neither of them turns back. As the dust settles, Vivian begins rebuilding herself, not just as a CEO, but as a woman allowed to want joy, peace, and real love. Nathan, meanwhile, realizes that being dependable was never his weakness. It was the very thing that made him worthy of something lasting. Their relationship is tested by judgment, emotional fallout, and the fear that what they have may cost too much. But instead of breaking, they grow stronger. 5. Breakthrough and ending: the life neither of them expected. Over time, the anger around them softens. What once looked reckless begins to reveal itself as something rare, a relationship built on truth, respect, and emotional courage. Nathan's daughter grows close to Vivian, and Vivian finds in Nathan's quiet world the sense of home she never found in power or status. 2 years after the night he first sat across from her, Nathan brings Vivian back to the same restaurant where everything began. There, in the place where she once sat alone, he asks her to marry him. She says yes. In the end, the single father once dismissed as too ordinary becomes the man who gives a powerful CEO the one thing success never could: a love that is steady, brave, and real. And for both of them, that unexpected choice becomes the beginning of the life they truly needed. The memory of Vivian Hale had mostly faded. Nathan had met her once, briefly, at a work event 18 months ago. He'd been dating someone at the time, a woman named Lauren, who worked in finance and had opinions about wine pairings. Lauren knew Vivian socially, the way people in Seattle's professional class all seemed to know each other. They'd run into her at some rooftop fundraiser Nathan hadn't wanted to attend, and Lauren had practically glowed introducing them. "This is Vivian Hale," Lauren had said, like the name alone should mean something. It did. Vivian Hale was the founder and CEO of a tech consultancy firm that had gone from startup to industry leader in under 5 years. She'd been on magazine covers. She'd given TED Talks. She was 30 years old and ran a company worth more than Nathan would earn in 10 lifetimes. She was also, Nathan noticed, exhausted. Not visibly. Vivian's posture was perfect, her smile warm, her handshake firm. She asked polite questions and gave polite answers. But Nathan saw the tightness around her eyes, the way she checked her phone 3 times in 2 minutes, the way she held her champagne glass like it was a prop in a play she'd been performing too long. They exchanged maybe 5 sentences. "Nice to meet you." "You as well." "Lauren says you work in marketing?" "Digital, yeah, nothing glamorous." "I doubt that's true." And that was it. Lauren broke up with Nathan 4 months later. She said he was a great guy, which was code for boring. She said she needed someone with more ambition, which was code for richer. She said he was too focused on being a good father and not focused enough on being an exciting partner. "You're safe, Nathan," she'd said. "And that's wonderful for Mia, but I need someone who feels a little dangerous." There it was again. Safe. The worst compliment a man could receive. Nathan hadn't argued, he'd just nodded, helped her pack the 2 boxes of things she'd left at his apartment, and wished her well. Then he'd gone home, checked on Mia, and decided he was done dating for a while. That had been 6 months ago. But Nathan wasn't supposed to be at Ascend that night. Ascend was the kind of restaurant people went to when they wanted to be seen. White tablecloths, a wine list thicker than most novels, waiters who introduced themselves like they were auditioning for a play. Nathan didn't belong there, but his boss, Tom, had insisted. "Client dinner," Tom had said. "Big one. I need you there." "I have Mia." "Get a sitter." "Tom, Nathan, this is important. We land this account. And you're looking at a promotion. Maybe even a raise. You want to keep doing school drop-off in a 15-year-old Camry, or do you want to actually give that kid a future?" The guilt worked. Nathan called his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd watched Mia a dozen times before. He put on the one suit he owned that still fit. He drove to Ascend and sat through 2 hours of small talk with a client who mostly wanted to hear himself speak. By the time dessert arrived, Nathan's brain was numb. That's when he saw her. Vivian Hale, sitting alone at a corner table, staring at the door. She looked different than she had 18 months ago. Her hair was shorter, cut into a sharp bob that framed her face. She wore a black dress that was elegant without trying, and her expression was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that came from practice. Nathan watched as she checked her phone, then checked it again, then set it face down on the table and picked up her water glass, taking a slow sip like she had all the time in the world, except the table was set for 2, and the chair across from her was empty. Nathan's client was still talking, something about quarterly projections and market penetration, but Nathan wasn't listening anymore. He was watching Vivian's face as the realization settled in, the slight tightening of her jaw, the way her hand moved to smooth a napkin that didn't need smoothing, the forced smile she gave the waiter when he asked if she was ready to order. She was being stood up. Nathan didn't know why that bothered him so much. He didn't know this woman, hadn't thought about her in months. But something about seeing her sit there, alone in a room full of people, pretending everything was fine, it cracked something open in his chest. He excused himself from the table. Utat. Vivian saw him coming and didn't recognize him at first. She was too busy trying to decide whether to order food or just leave. Leaving felt like admitting defeat. Ordering felt like eating alone in public, which somehow felt worse. She was trapped in the paralysis of bad options when a man in an ill-fitting suit appeared beside her table. "Hi," he said. Vivian looked up, her professional smile already in place. "Hello." "I don't know if you remember me," the man said. "We met about 1.5 years ago. I was dating Lauren Finch. You and she knew each other." Vivian's memory was sharp when it needed to be. She scanned his face and found the connection. "Nathan." "Yeah." He looked surprised she remembered. You work in marketing. That's right. There was a pause. Vivian waited for him to say why he'd approached her table, but he didn't seem to know. Finally, he said, I don't want to overstep, and if I am, just tell me to leave and I will. But I saw you sitting here and you looked like maybe you were waiting for someone who isn't coming. And I thought, if you didn't want to sit alone, I could sit with you, just for a drink. No agenda, no weird angle, just company. Vivian stared at him. She should have said no, should have politely declined and preserved whatever dignity she had left. But something about the way he said it, so plainly without performance, made her pause. Why would you do that? She asked. Nathan shrugged. Because sitting alone in a place like this sucks. And because I'm at a table with people I don't care about, talking about things that don't matter. I'd rather be here. Vivian glanced at the empty chair across from her, then back at Nathan. Sit, she said. He sat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Nathan signaled the waiter and ordered a bourbon, neat. Vivian already had wine. So, Nathan said. Bad date? Vivian's laugh was short and humorless. Something like that. Want to talk about it? Not particularly. Fair enough. They sat in silence for another beat. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. Vivian realized she didn't feel the need to perform right now. This man wasn't someone she needed to impress. He wasn't a client, wasn't a competitor, wasn't someone from her world at all. What about you? Vivian asked. You said you're here with people you don't care about. Why stay? Work thing. Client dinner. My boss thinks landing this account will change my life. Will it? Nathan considered. Probably not. But it might mean I can afford to take my daughter to Disneyland next year instead of just talking about it. You have a daughter. Mia, she's 6. Vivian nodded slowly. And her mother? Not in the picture. I mean, she's around, technically, but I have full custody. That must be hard. Some days. Nathan took a sip of his bourbon. Most days, honestly. But she's worth it. Vivian studied him. There was no bravado in the way he said it. No performance of martyrdom. Just a statement of fact. You don't meet a lot of men who talk about their kids that way, Vivian said quietly. What way? Like they're the thing that matters most. Nathan frowned. What else would matter more? Vivian didn't have an answer for that. They talked for an hour. Vivian told him, in broad strokes, about her company. Nathan asked questions that weren't about profit margins or valuation. He wanted to know what the work actually felt like, what problems she was solving, what kept her up at night. It was disarming. Nathan told her about Mia, about learning to braid hair and failing spectacularly, about the time Mia asked him why the sky was blue and he'd tried to explain refracted light to a 4-year-old, about the fear that he was doing everything wrong but showing up anyway. You're a good father, Vivian said at one point. Nathan shook his head. I'm a present father. I don't know if that's the same thing. It's better, Vivian said. The conversation drifted. Vivian found herself talking about things she didn't usually share. How exhausting it was to always be on. How lonely success could be. How she sometimes missed the version of herself that existed before she became the person everyone expected her to be. Nathan listened without trying to fix anything. He didn't offer advice or platitudes. He just listened. At some point, Vivian realized she'd forgotten about the man who'd stood her up. I should probably go, Nathan said eventually. My boss is going to think I ditched. Did you? Completely. Vivian smiled, a real smile this time. Thank you for this. For what? For not letting me eat alone. Nathan stood, leaving cash on the table for his drink. For what it's worth, whoever didn't show up tonight is an idiot. Vivian didn't know what to say to that. Nathan started to walk away, then stopped. If you ever want to not eat alone again, I'm around. No pressure, just if you want. He handed her a business card. It was plain white. His name and email printed in a boring sans serif font. Nothing impressive. Vivian took it. Good night, Nathan. Good night, Vivian. Vivian sat at the table for another 20 minutes after he left. She looked at the business card in her hand and thought about throwing it away, thought about adding it to the stack of contacts she'd never use, thought about forgetting this entire strange, uncomfortable, unexpectedly decent interaction. Instead, she put it in her wallet. Nathan drove home replaying the conversation in his head. He'd probably overstepped, probably made her uncomfortable, probably looked like some desperate single dad trying to shoot his shot with a woman completely out of his league. Except it hadn't felt like that. It had felt like two people sitting in a loud room finding a few minutes of quiet. When he got home, Mrs. Chen was asleep on the couch and Mia was asleep in her bed. Nathan paid Mrs. Chen, thanked her, and stood in Mia's doorway for a long time, watching his daughter breathe. He thought about what Lauren had said, too safe to be unforgettable. He thought about Vivian's face when she'd smiled, really smiled, at something he'd said. And he thought just for a second that maybe being safe wasn't the worst thing he could be. Vivian didn't expect to see Nathan again. The card stayed in her wallet, mostly forgotten, as she returned to the relentless pace of running a company. Board meetings, investor calls, product launches. Interviews where journalists asked the same questions in slightly different ways. And then there was Andrew Calloway, her fiancé of 8 months. Though the engagement felt more like a business arrangement than a romance, Andrew was a venture capitalist, sharp, successful, well-connected. On paper, they made perfect sense. Both driven, both ambitious, both comfortable in the world of power lunches and charity galas. In practice, they barely saw each other. The night he'd stood her up at Ascend, Andrew had texted an apology 3 hours late. Emergency meeting. You understand? Vivian did understand. She understood that she always came second to whatever deal he was chasing. She understood that he saw her as an asset, impressive, accomplished, good for his image. She understood that he'd proposed not because he loved her, but because their partnership looked good in Forbes profiles. She also understood that she'd said yes for the same reasons. It was practical, strategic, safe. Except Vivian was starting to hate that word. Cheat. 3 weeks after the dinner, Vivian's assistant booked her a table at a bistro downtown. It was a working lunch. She was meeting a potential client, a mid-sized firm looking to overhaul their digital infrastructure. Vivian arrived early, ordered sparkling water, and reviewed her notes. The client was late, 10 minutes, then 15. Vivian checked her phone. No messages. She was about to leave when she heard a familiar voice behind her. We have to stop meeting like this. Vivian turned. Nathan stood there, holding a to-go bag from the bistro's counter, looking just as surprised to see her as she was to see him. Nathan. Vivian. He glanced at the empty seat across from her. Please tell me this isn't becoming a pattern. Despite herself, Vivian laughed. My client is running late, or possibly not coming. I haven't decided which yet. Well, Nathan said, I'm just picking up lunch. But if you want company while you wait, I've got 15 minutes before I have to be back at the office. Vivian should have said no. She said, sit. 15 minutes turned into 45. The client eventually texted to reschedule. Vivian didn't mind. Nathan told her about Mia's latest obsession, dinosaurs. Apparently his daughter had decided she was going to be a paleontologist and had started correcting adults on their pronunciation of pterodactyl. She told my boss that the P is silent, and he's been saying it wrong his whole life, Nathan said. I've never been more proud and more mortified at the same time. Vivian found herself leaning forward, genuinely engaged. What did your boss say? He Googled it right there in the meeting. Then he thanked her for the education. She sounds remarkable. She is. Nathan's expression softened. She's also 6 and thinks farts are the pinnacle of comedy, so context. Vivian laughed, and it felt good. When was the last time she'd laughed like this? Not the polite laugh she gave at networking events, but an actual unguarded reaction. What about you? Nathan asked. How's work? Relentless, Anna, Vivian said honestly. We're launching a new product next quarter, and it's a lot. Good lot or bad lot? Vivian considered. both. It's exciting. It's terrifying. It's the kind of thing that could define the next 5 years of the company. So no pressure. Sounds like pressure. It is. Vivian stirred her water absently. And everyone's watching. Every decision I make gets analyzed. Every misstep gets amplified. Sometimes I feel like I'm performing my own life instead of living it. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That sounds exhausting." It is. So why do it? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? I mean, if it's that exhausting and you're not enjoying it, why keep going? Vivian opened her mouth to answer, then stopped, because the truth was, she didn't know. She'd been running so fast for so long that she'd forgotten why she'd started running in the first place. I don't know how to do anything else, she said finally. Nathan nodded like that made sense. That's fair, but maybe that's the thing to figure out. Not what you're good at, what you actually want. Vivian looked at him, this man in his wrinkled shirt and scuffed shoes who had no idea how complicated her life was, and felt something shift in her chest. You make it sound simple, she said quietly. It's not simple, Nathan said, but it's worth asking. They exchanged numbers before Nathan left. In case you ever need a lunch partner who won't stand you up, he said, trying to keep it light. Vivian saved his contact. She told herself it was professional courtesy. Networking. She knew that was a lie. Over the next month, they started texting. Nothing serious at first. Nathan would send her pictures of Mia's latest dinosaur drawings. Vivian would reply with sarcastic observations about terrible corporate jargon. It was easy, low stakes, safe. Except it started to feel like the best part of Vivian's day. She found herself checking her phone between meetings, hoping for a message. Found herself smiling at things Nathan said that weren't even that funny. Found herself wanting to tell him things she didn't tell anyone else. And Nathan was falling without realizing it. He told himself he was just being friendly, that Vivian was interesting and he enjoyed talking to her, that this wasn't anything more than two people who'd found an unexpected connection. But then she texted him late one night, after a brutal board meeting that had left her feeling small and scrutinized, and he stayed up until 2 a.m. talking her through it. And when she thanked him, he realized he would have stayed up all night if she'd needed him to. That's when he knew he was in trouble. They met for coffee on a Saturday afternoon. Mia was with Carla for the weekend, one of her irregular visits, and Nathan had texted Vivian without overthinking it. Free this afternoon? Coffee? Vivian had hesitated. She was engaged. What was this? But she typed back, where? Before she could stop herself. They met at a small cafe in Fremont, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. It was nothing like the polished restaurants and hotel bars Vivian usually frequented. She loved it. Nathan was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 mugs in front of him. I ordered for you, he said. Oat milk latte, right? Vivian blinked. How did you know? You mentioned it once, in a text. I just remembered. Something about that small gesture, the fact that he'd paid attention, that he'd remembered, made Vivian's throat tighten. She sat down. They talked for 3 hours. The conversation wandered everywhere. Childhood memories, worst first jobs, things they'd believed as kids that turned out to be wrong. Nathan told her about the time he'd convinced himself he could talk to animals and spent an entire summer trying to communicate with his neighbor's cat. Did it work? Vivian asked, grinning. The cat scratched me and walked away. So no. Vivian told him about growing up as the youngest of 3 siblings, always trying to prove she was just as capable, just as smart. About her father, who'd built a small accounting firm from nothing and taught her that hard work was the only currency that mattered. He sounds impressive, Nathan said. He was. Vivian's smile faded slightly. He passed away 4 years ago. Heart attack. He never got to see the company really take off. I'm sorry. Me too. Vivian traced the rim of her mug. I think about him a lot. Wonder what he'd think of all this. If he'd be proud or disappointed. Why would he be disappointed? Vivian shrugged. Because I'm not sure I'm doing this for the right reasons anymore. I think I'm doing it because it's what everyone expects, because it's what I've always done, because stopping feels like failing. Nathan leaned back in his chair, watching her carefully. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Are you happy? The question hung in the air between them. Vivian wanted to say yes, wanted to defend her life, her choices, her success. But sitting there, in this small cafe, with this man who barely knew her but somehow saw her anyway, she couldn't lie. No, she said quietly. I don't think I am. Nathan didn't try to fix it. He just nodded, like that answer made perfect sense. What about you? Vivian asked, deflecting. Are you happy? Nathan thought about it. I'm content, most days. I've got Mia, I've got work that pays the bills, I've got a life that's stable, even if it's not exciting. You don't want exciting? I used to think I did. Then I had a kid, and exciting started to feel overrated. He paused. But lately, I don't know. Maybe I'm starting to want something more again. Their eyes met, and the air between them shifted. Vivian broke the gaze first, looking down at her mug. I should probably go. Yeah, of course. They stood, gathered their things, walked outside into the gray Seattle afternoon. Nathan, Vivian said as they reached the sidewalk. Yeah? She hesitated, then said, Thank you for this, for listening. Any time. Vivian turned to leave, then stopped. I'm engaged. Nathan froze. What? I'm engaged, Vivian repeated, forcing herself to look at him. To someone named Andrew. We've been together for 2 years, engaged for 8 months. Nathan's face went carefully blank. Oh, I thought you should know. Before this becomes something it shouldn't. And Nathan nodded slowly. Right, yeah, that makes sense. There was a long, painful silence. Finally, Nathan said, Does he make you happy? Vivian didn't answer. That was answer enough. Vivian walked away from that cafe knowing she'd just made everything infinitely more complicated. She went home to the pristine apartment she shared with Andrew, when he was there, which wasn't often, and stared at the engagement ring on her finger. It was beautiful, tasteful, expensive. It felt like a shackle. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. For what it's worth, I think you deserve to be happy. Really happy, not just successful. Vivian read it 3 times. Then she typed back, I don't know if I know how to be both. Nathan's reply came immediately. Maybe that's something you figure out as you go. Vivian set her phone down and looked around her empty apartment, and for the first time in years she let herself imagine what it might feel like to choose herself over the life everyone else expected her to live. Nathan lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. Engaged. Of course she was engaged. Women like Vivian Hale didn't stay single. They had men in tailored suits and corner offices competing for their attention. Men who could match their ambition, their income, their world. Nathan was a single dad in a 1-bedroom apartment who drove a 15-year-old car and whose idea of a nice dinner was anywhere with cloth napkins. He had no business feeling what he was feeling, but he felt it anyway. And the worst part, the part that kept him awake, was that he was pretty sure Vivian felt it too, which meant this wasn't going to end well for either of them. Nathan tried to pull back. He told himself it was the right thing to do. Vivian was engaged. She had a life he wasn't part of, a future already mapped out with someone else. The smart move, the decent move, was to step away before things got messier than they already were. So he stopped texting first, kept his replies shorter, put distance between them in all the small ways that didn't require an actual conversation about what was happening. It lasted 4 days. On the 5th day, Vivian called him. Nathan was at his desk, halfway through a presentation deck that made his eyes glaze over, when his phone lit up with her name. He stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hey, he said, trying to sound casual. Are you avoiding me? Vivian asked. No preamble, no small talk. Nathan exhaled. I'm trying to. Why? You know why. There was a pause on the other end. When Vivian spoke again, her voice was quieter. Can we talk? In person? Vivian, Please. Nathan closed his eyes. Every rational part of his brain screamed that this was a terrible idea, that seeing her again would only make everything harder. Where? He asked. They met at Golden Gardens Beach an hour later. It was late afternoon, the sky heavy with clouds that hadn't decided whether to rain yet. The beach was nearly empty, just a few dog walkers and a teenager throwing stones into the water. Vivian was already there when Nathan arrived, standing near the shore with her arms wrapped around herself. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look younger, less polished, more real. Nathan walked up beside her, hands shoved in his jacket pockets. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stood there, watching the water. I broke it off with Andrew, Vivian said finally. Nathan's head snapped toward her. What? Last night, I ended the engagement. Vivian, it wasn't because of you, she said quickly, looking at him now. Or maybe it was. I don't know. But I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep living a life that looked right on paper but felt wrong every single day. She took a shaky breath. I told him I didn't love him. Not the way I should. Not the way he deserved. Nathan felt like the ground had shifted under his feet. What did he say? He wasn't surprised. Vivian's laugh was bitter. He said he'd known for a while. Said we were good for each other's careers but not for each other. Then he asked if there was someone else. What did you tell him? Vivian met his eyes. I told him the truth. That I'd met someone who made me feel things I didn't know I could feel anymore. Someone who listened to me without trying to fix me. Someone who made me want to be honest instead of perfect. Nathan's chest tightened. Vivian, I can't be that person for you. Why not? Because I'm a single dad who barely makes ends meet. Because your world and mine don't line up. Because everyone in your life is going to think you've lost your mind for even considering this. He gestured between them, frustrated. Because I don't know how to be what you need. What if you already are? Vivian said softly. The question hung in the salt air between them. Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to list all the reasons this couldn't work. But standing there, looking at this woman who'd just blown up her entire life because she refused to keep pretending, he couldn't find the words. I'm terrified, Vivian admitted. I don't know what I'm doing. I've spent my whole life building something, and now I feel like I'm dismantling it piece by piece. But Nathan, I can't keep living a life that doesn't feel like mine. Nathan turned to face her fully. If we do this, if we actually try this, it's going to be hard. People are going to talk. They're going to judge. And I can't promise you the kind of life you're used to. I can't take you to fancy restaurants every week or fly you to Paris on a whim. I've got a 6-year-old who comes first, always. I've got school pickups and bedtime routines and a budget that doesn't have room for spontaneity. I don't want Paris, Vivian said. I want real. I want someone who sees me, not the version of me I've been performing. I want... She stopped, then said the rest in a rush. I want you. Nathan felt something crack open in his chest. All the walls he'd built, all the reasons he'd given himself for staying safe and small and unnoticed, they crumbled. I want you too, he said. I've wanted you since that first night at the restaurant. Maybe before that. I don't know. Vivian stepped closer. So what do we do? Nathan reached for her hand. Her fingers were cold, and he wrapped both his hands around hers to warm them. We take it slow. We figure it out as we go. And we're honest about everything. About what this is, about what it might become, about what happens when it gets hard. Okay, Vivian said. Okay, Nathan echoed. And then standing on that cold beach with the wind whipping around them, Nathan kissed her. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It was tentative at first, both of them half expecting the other to pull away. But then Vivian's hands came up to his face, and Nathan pulled her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like falling and landing at the same time. When they finally broke apart, Vivian was smiling, really smiling, the kind of smile Nathan had only seen glimpses of before. I should probably tell you what, Nathan said, still holding her. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Good, Vivian said. Neither do I. They stayed at the beach until the sun started to set, talking through what came next. There were logistics to figure out, when to tell people, how to handle the inevitable questions, what this meant for Vivian's company and Nathan's job, and the careful ecosystems they'd each built around their lives. But for now, for this one evening, they let themselves just be two people who'd found something unexpected and decided to fight for it. The fallout started faster than either of them anticipated. Andrew, to his credit, didn't make a scene. But his silence was loud in their social circles. Within 48 hours, Vivian started fielding calls from friends and colleagues, all asking variations of the same question. What happened? She kept her answers vague. Personal reasons, growing apart, mutual decision. The truth felt too raw, too complicated to explain to people who saw her engagement as a networking opportunity. But the rumors filled in the gaps she left. Vivian heard them third hand, whispers at a board meeting, a carefully worded email from an investor, a text from a former college roommate who'd seen something on social media. The story being passed around was that she'd left Andrew for someone else, someone inappropriate, someone beneath her. The word downgrade came up more than once. Nathan became aware of the scrutiny in smaller, sharper ways. Tom, his boss, pulled him aside one morning with a strange expression. "So," Tom said, leaning against Nathan's desk. "Vivian Hale." Nathan's stomach dropped. "What about her?" "You're seeing her." It wasn't a question. Nathan considered lying, then decided against it. "Yeah, I am." Tom let out a low whistle. "Man, I don't know whether to congratulate you or warn you." "Warn me about what?" "You know who she was engaged to, right? Andrew Calloway. That guy has friends in every boardroom in this city. And from what I'm hearing, he's not thrilled about being replaced by—" Tom stopped himself. "By what?" Nathan asked, his voice harder than he intended. "By a guy like me?" Tom held up his hands. "I'm not saying it. I'm saying that's what people are saying." Nathan forced himself to stay calm. "I appreciate the heads up." "Just be careful, Cho," Tom said. "Office politics are one thing, but this is a whole different game." After Tom walked away, Nathan sat at his desk, staring at his computer screen without seeing it. He'd known this would happen, known that dating Vivian would put a target on his back. But hearing it confirmed, hearing that people were already talking, already dismissing him, made his skin crawl. His phone buzzed, a text from Vivian. "Lunch today? I need to see a friendly face." Nathan typed back, "Always." They met at a deli near Nathan's office, the kind of place with fluorescent lighting and plastic chairs that had seen better decades. It was about as far from Vivian's usual lunch spots as possible, and Nathan watched her walk in wondering if she'd regret this, regret him, once the reality fully set in. But Vivian slid into the seat across from him with visible relief. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For being normal. For not asking me if I'm sure about this, or if I've thought it through, or if I'm having some kind of crisis." She picked up the menu, then set it down again without looking at it. "Everyone else is treating me like I've lost my mind." "Have you?" Nathan asked gently. Vivian's smile was tired. "Probably, but I don't care." They ordered sandwiches neither of them was particularly hungry for. Nathan told her about Tom's warning. Vivian told him about the board member who'd suggested, very delicately, that she might want to manage the optics of her personal life. "Manage the optics," Vivian repeated, shaking her head. "Like my relationship is a PR problem to solve." "Is it?" Nathan asked. "A problem, I mean, for the company." Vivian considered the question seriously. "It might be. Some of our investors are old school. They care about image, stability, the appearance of good judgment. Breaking off an engagement and immediately dating someone new, it doesn't look stable." "Someone new who's not in your tax bracket," Nathan added. "That's not what I—" "But it's what they're thinking." Vivian didn't deny it. Nathan leaned back in his chair. "So what do we do? Do you need to pull back? Create some distance until things settle? Is that what you want?" "No," Nathan said immediately. "But I also don't want to be the reason your company implodes." Vivian reached across the table and took his hand. "My company won't implode. And even if it wobbles, that's my problem to handle, not yours." "We're in this together now," Nathan said. "Your problems are my problems." "That works both ways," Vivian pointed out. Which means when people talk about you, when they dismiss you or underestimate you because of me, that's my problem too. Nathan squeezed her hand. Deal. They sat there in that ugly deli, holding hands across a formica table, and made a silent agreement to weather whatever came next. 2 weeks later, Nathan invited Vivian to his apartment for the first time. He'd debated it. The place was small, dated, nothing like the sleek downtown loft Vivian had mentioned living in. But if they were going to do this, really do this, she needed to see his actual life, not the edited version he could present over coffee dates and beach walks. Vivian arrived on a Saturday evening carrying a bottle of wine and visible nerves. "This is weird, right?" she said as Nathan let her in. "Coming to your place feels, I don't know, official." "It is weird," Nathan agreed, "but good weird, I think." Mia was at Carla's for the weekend, which Nathan was grateful for. He wanted Vivian to meet his daughter eventually, but not yet. Not until he was sure this thing between them had legs. Vivian walked through the small apartment slowly, taking it in. Nathan watched her catalog the worn furniture, the stack of dishes in the sink he hadn't gotten to, the kids' drawings taped to the fridge. He waited for her to make some polite comment to hide whatever disappointment she felt. Instead, she stopped in front of one of Mia's drawings, a lopsided T-Rex with the words "Daddy and Me" scrawled across the top. "She drew this?" Vivian asked. "Yeah, last week. It's wonderful." Nathan moved to stand beside her. "She wants to be a paleontologist or a veterinarian or a firefighter. It changes daily." Vivian smiled. "She sounds incredible." "She is. She's also stubborn and dramatic and obsessed with fart jokes. Fair warning." "When do I get to meet her?" The question caught Nathan off guard. "You want to meet her?" "Of course I do. She's the most important person in your life. If this is real, and I think it is, then yeah, I want to know her." Nathan felt something loosen in his chest. "Okay, soon, just let me figure out how to explain this to her first." They ordered Thai food and ate it on Nathan's couch, which sagged in the middle and had a mystery stain from a juice box incident Nathan preferred not to discuss. Vivian kicked off her shoes and curled her legs under her, looking more relaxed than Nathan had ever seen her. "Can I ask you something?" Vivian said between bites of pad Thai. "Shoot. Do you ever resent it, being a single parent?" Nathan thought about it. "Sometimes. Not because of Mia, never because of her, but yeah, sometimes I resent that I'm doing this alone. That Carla gets to dip in and out when it's convenient, while I'm the one handling the hard stuff. The tantrums and the sick days and the sleepless nights. That sounds exhausting." "It is," Nathan admitted. "But it's also, I don't know how to explain this without sounding cheesy. It's the most real thing I've ever done. Everything else in my life feels kind of surface level, but being Mia's dad, that's the thing that matters." Vivian set down her food. "You're a good man, Nathan. I'm just showing up. That's more than most people do." They finished eating, and Nathan opened the wine Vivian had brought, even though he was pretty sure it cost more than his weekly grocery budget. They talked about nothing important: favorite movies, embarrassing middle school memories, the weirdest foods they'd ever tried. It was easy. Comfortable. At some point, Vivian shifted closer on the couch. Nathan put his arm around her and she rested her head against his shoulder. "I like this," she said quietly. "This? Being here. With you, not performing." Nathan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "You never have to perform with me." "That's why this scares me," Vivian said. "I don't know how to be this version of myself all the time, the one who isn't trying to impress anyone or manage perceptions. What if I can't sustain it?" "Then we figure it out," Nathan said. "Together." Vivian tilted her face up toward his, and Nathan kissed her. It was slower this time, deeper. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped up in each other on his terrible couch, the city lights filtering through the window. When Vivian eventually left, late enough that Nathan walked her to her car and made sure she got in safely, he went back inside and looked around his apartment. The same worn furniture, the same cramped space, but it felt different now, like it had been seen, accepted, maybe even valued. He was in real trouble. The trouble escalated when Vivian invited Nathan to a company event. It was a product launch party, one of those carefully curated affairs with an open bar, catered appetizers, and a guest list full of tech industry insiders. Vivian had been upfront about what it would be. "It's going to be awful," she'd said. "Lots of forced networking and people asking invasive questions. But I'd really like you there, if you're up for it." Nathan wasn't up for it, but he said yes anyway. He borrowed a better suit from Tom, got a haircut, and showed up at the downtown venue trying not to feel like an imposter. The space was all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, filled with people in designer clothes drinking craft cocktails. Nathan recognized a few faces from business magazines. Vivian found him near the entrance and pulled him aside. "You came," she said, and the relief in her voice was obvious. "I said I would." "I know, but I half expected you to bail." She straightened his tie, her fingers lingering. "You look good. I feel like a fraud." "Join the club," Vivian said. Then she took his hand and led him into the crowd. The stares started immediately. Nathan felt them. The quick glances, the double takes, the whispered conversations that stopped when he walked by. People were trying to figure out who he was and why Vivian Hale had brought him. Vivian handled it with practiced ease, introducing Nathan to a steady stream of colleagues and investors. She didn't over-explain his presence, didn't justify or apologize. She simply said, "This is Nathan Cole," and let people draw their own conclusions. Most were polite. Some were genuinely friendly. But Nathan could feel the judgment simmering under the surface. He was being assessed, cataloged, compared to Andrew Calloway, and found wanting. About an hour in, a man in an expensive suit approached them. He was older, maybe 50, with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. "Vivian," he said warmly, kissing her cheek. "Beautiful event." "Thank you, Richard. This is Nathan Cole." "Nathan, Richard Pearson. He's one of our earliest investors." Richard shook Nathan's hand with a grip just firm enough to make a point. "Nathan, what do you do?" "I work in digital marketing," Nathan said. "Ah, for which firm?" Nathan named his company. He watched Richard's expression shift, just barely, but enough to notice. The company wasn't impressive, wasn't in Richard's world at all. "Interesting," Richard said in a tone that meant the opposite. He turned back to Vivian. "I'd love to steal you for a moment. There's someone I'd like you to meet." "Of course," Vivian said. She glanced at Nathan. "I'll be right back." Nathan watched her walk away, then made his way to the bar. He ordered a bourbon and tried not to feel like everyone in the room was watching him. "You must be the new boyfriend." Nathan turned. A woman in her 30s stood beside him, holding a martini and wearing an amused expression. "Word travels fast," Nathan said. "In this crowd?" "Always." She extended her hand. "I'm Jessica. I work with Vivian." "Nathan." "I know." Jessica leaned against the bar. "Can I give you some unsolicited advice? Do I have a choice?" "Not really." She smiled. "Don't let them intimidate you. Half the people in this room are full of themselves, and the other half are faking it. Vivian wouldn't have brought you if she didn't think you could handle it. She might have overestimated me." "I doubt that," Jessica said. "She's one of the smartest people I know, and between you and me, she seems happier than she has in years, so whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Before Nathan could respond, Jessica's attention shifted. "Uh-oh." "What?" "Andrew just walked in." Nathan followed her gaze. Across the room, near the entrance, stood a man who could only be Andrew Calloway. Tall, polished, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Nathan's car, and he was looking directly at Vivian. Nathan's stomach tightened. He watched as Andrew made his way through the crowd toward Vivian, watched her face shift when she saw him. Surprise, then something that looked like resignation. Andrew said something Nathan couldn't hear, and Vivian excused herself from the conversation she'd been having. They moved to a quieter corner of the room. Nathan wanted to walk over, to insert himself into whatever was happening. But he stayed put, gripping his bourbon glass and trying to read Vivian's body language from across the room. The conversation was brief. Andrew did most of the talking. Vivian listened, her expression carefully neutral. Then Andrew said something that made Vivian's jaw tighten, and Nathan was halfway across the room before he realized he'd started moving. He stopped a few feet away, close enough to hear. Just saying you should think about what you're giving up, Andrew was saying. We built something together, Vivian. You're throwing it away for... For what? Vivian's voice was cold. Say it, Andrew. Andrew's eyes flicked to Nathan, standing there in his borrowed suit. For someone who doesn't understand your world. You're right, Vivian said. He doesn't understand my world, but he understands me. That's the difference. Andrew's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. That's my decision to make. It's going to cost you, Andrew said. Professionally, personally, people are already talking. Let them talk. Andrew shook his head, then walked away without acknowledging Nathan. Vivian stood there for a moment, her hands clenched at her sides. Then she turned to Nathan. I'm sorry you had to hear that, she said. Are you okay? No, but I will be. She glanced around the room, at the people still stealing glances, still whispering. Can we get out of here? Absolutely. They left without saying goodbye to anyone. Vivian grabbed her coat and they walked out into the cold Seattle night, neither of them speaking until they were a block away from the venue. He's not wrong, you know, Vivian said finally. This is going to cost me. Nathan stopped walking. Then maybe we should... Don't, Vivian interrupted. Don't suggest we end this. I'm tired of making decisions based on what other people think. I'm tired of living my life like it's a strategic plan. Vivian, I'm falling in love with you, she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. And I know that's insane. I know we barely know each other, and this whole thing is reckless and probably doomed, but I don't care. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing what I want instead of what makes sense. Nathan stared at her, his heart pounding. You're falling in love with me? Yes. Even though I don't fit into your world? Especially because you don't fit into my world, Vivian said. You see me, Nathan, not the title or the company or the image, just me. And when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe. Nathan closed the distance between them. I'm falling in love with you too. Vivian's breath caught. Yeah? Yeah. He cupped her face in his hands. And you're right, this is insane and reckless and probably a terrible idea. But I don't care either. They kissed there on the sidewalk under the yellow glow of a streetlight, and Nathan felt the last of his defenses crumble. He was all in now. No going back. When they broke apart, Vivian was smiling through tears. What happens now? She asked. Now, Nathan said, we figure it out. Together. Vivian nodded. Together. They walked back to Nathan's car, hand in hand, the city stretching out around them. The road ahead was uncertain, full of obstacles and judgment and complications neither of them could fully anticipate. But for the first time in a long time, both of them felt like they were moving towards something real, something worth fighting for, even if it scared them. Especially because it scared them. The first real test came 2 weeks later when Nathan introduced Vivian to Mia. He'd put it off as long as he reasonably could, telling himself he was being careful, protecting his daughter from getting attached to someone who might not stay. But the truth was simpler and more selfish. He was terrified. Terrified that Mia wouldn't like Vivian. Terrified that Vivian would realize what she'd signed up for and bail. Terrified that the two most important people in his life wouldn't fit together the way he desperately needed them to. He tried to prepare Mia the night before, sitting on the edge of her bed after reading 3 chapters of a book about dragons. So, Bug, I want to talk to you about something. Mia looked up from the stuffed triceratops she'd been arranging on her pillow. Am I in trouble? What? No. Why would you be in trouble? You have your serious face on. Then Nathan tried to relax his expression. I don't have a serious face. You do. It's the same face you make when you're about to tell me we can't get ice cream. Despite his nerves, Nathan smiled. Okay, fair. But no, you're not in trouble. I actually wanted to tell you about someone I've been spending time with. A friend. Mia's eyes narrowed with the suspicious intelligence of a 6-year-old who'd learned to read between the lines. A friend like Emma's mom is friends with the mailman? Or a friend like a real friend? Where did you... Never mind. A friend like someone I care about. Someone I'd like you to meet. Is it a girl? Yes. Is she your girlfriend? Nathan hesitated. He and Vivian hadn't actually used that word yet, dancing around it like it was too big or too soon or too something. But sitting there with his daughter's clear-eyed gaze on him, the truth felt simple. Yeah, he said. She is. Mia was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said, Is she pretty? I think so, but that's not the important part. What's the important part? That she's kind and smart, and she makes me happy. Does she like dinosaurs? Nathan laughed. I don't know. We haven't talked about that yet. That's important, Daddy. You should have asked. You're absolutely right. I'll ask her. Mia picked up her triceratops, making it walk across the bedspread. When do I meet her? Tomorrow. She's going to come over for lunch. Is that okay with you? Mia shrugged, which could have meant anything. I guess. If you don't want to, Bug, you can tell me. I won't be mad. It's okay, Mia said. Then, after a pause, Daddy? Yeah? If she's your girlfriend, does that mean she's going to be my mom? Nathan's chest tightened. No, sweetheart. You already have a mom. This is different. She's someone who cares about me, and hopefully someone who'll care about you too. But she's not trying to replace anyone. Mia nodded slowly, then returned to arranging her dinosaurs. Nathan kissed her forehead and turned off the light, but he could feel the weight of her thoughts following him out of the room. Vivian arrived at noon carrying a canvas bag that clinked suspiciously. I brought supplies, she said when Nathan opened the door. I might have panic bought half of a craft store. You didn't have to do that. I know, but I Googled what 6-year-olds like at 2 in the morning, and apparently the answer is slime. So I bought 17 different varieties of slime ingredients. Nathan took the bag from her, setting it on the counter. You're nervous. Terrified, Vivian admitted. What if she hates me? She won't hate you. What if she thinks I'm trying to replace her mom? I talked to her about that. She understands. What if... Nathan put his hands on Vivian's shoulders. Hey, breathe. She's 6. She's not going to interrogate you about your intentions or your net worth. She's going to ask if you like dinosaurs and then probably show you a drawing of a T-Rex eating a pizza. Does she really draw T-Rexes eating pizza? She drew one last week. It was surprisingly detailed. Vivian took a shaky breath. Okay, I can do this. You can do this. Mia chose that moment to appear in the doorway, wearing her favorite dinosaur t-shirt and holding the triceratops from the night before. She looked at Vivian with the solemn assessment of a kid trying to figure out if this stranger was a threat. Hi, Vivian said, her voice softer than Nathan had ever heard it. You must be Mia. I'm Vivian. Mia didn't say anything. I've heard a lot about you, Vivian continued. Your dad says you're basically a dinosaur expert. I know a lot about dinosaurs, Mia said carefully. I don't know very much about them, Vivian admitted. Maybe you could teach me? Mia considered this. Then she held up her triceratops. This is a triceratops. It's an herbivore, which means it only eats plants. The horns are for fighting off predators, and also for showing off to other triceratops. That's fascinating, Vivian said, and Nathan could tell she meant it. What's your favorite dinosaur? Velociraptor. They're small but really smart and they hunt in packs. He's smart and works well with others. That's a good combination. Mia almost smiled. Do you want to see my drawings? I would love to see your drawings. Nathan watched his daughter lead Vivian to the coffee table where a stack of construction paper waited. Mia spread out her latest creations, dinosaurs in various improbable situations. There was indeed a T-Rex eating pizza, also a stegosaurus riding a skateboard and a pterodactyl wearing sunglasses. Vivian sat cross-legged on the floor, examining each drawing with genuine interest. She asked questions. She laughed at Mia's explanations. And slowly, Nathan saw his daughter's posture relax, her wariness giving way to the natural enthusiasm she brought to everything she loved. I brought some stuff to make slime, Vivian said after they'd gone through the whole collection. Have you ever made slime before? Mia's eyes went wide. Real slime? Not the kind from the store? Real slime. We can make it whatever color you want. Can we make it glittery? Absolutely. For the next hour, Nathan's kitchen became a disaster zone of glue, borax, food coloring, and enough glitter to constitute an environmental hazard. Vivian had pulled her hair back and rolled up her sleeves, kneeling on the floor beside Mia as they mixed ingredients and tested consistency. She didn't flinch when Mia got glue on her expensive sweater. She didn't check her phone once. Nathan stood at the counter, supposedly making sandwiches, but mostly just watching Vivian laugh when the first batch of slime came out too sticky. Watching Mia explain the science of polymers with the confidence of someone who'd watched exactly one YouTube video on the subject. Watching the two of them figure out how to exist in the same space. "Daddy, look!" Mia held up a handful of purple, glittery slime. "We made it perfect!" "That's amazing, Bug." Vivian says slime is basically a non-Newtonian fluid, which means it acts like a solid and a liquid at the same time. Isn't that cool? "Very cool," Nathan said, meeting Vivian's eyes over his daughter's head. She was smiling, her face flushed from laughing, and Nathan felt something settle in his chest, something that felt dangerously close to certainty. They ate lunch at the coffee table, sandwiches and apple slices and the carrots Mia still didn't eat. Mia talked nonstop, telling Vivian about school and her best friend Emma and the substitute teacher who let them have extra recess. Vivian listened like every word mattered, asking follow-up questions that made Mia glow with the attention. "Can Vivian come back?" Mia asked as Vivian was getting ready to leave. "If she wants to," Nathan said. Mia looked at Vivian hopefully. "Do you want to?" Vivian crouched down to Mia's level. "I would really like that, if it's okay with you." "It's okay with me," Mia said. Then, with the bluntness only kids could pull off, "Are you going to marry my dad?" Nathan nearly choked on air. "Mia." "It's a fair question," Vivian said, still looking at Mia. "I don't know what's going to happen with me and your dad. We're still figuring that out, but I can promise you that I'm not here to mess things up or make your life harder. I just really like spending time with both of you." Mia nodded, satisfied with this answer in a way that baffled Nathan. "Okay, you can come back." "Thank you," Vivian said seriously. After Mia went to her room to play, Nathan walked Vivian to her car. "That went okay, right?" Vivian asked. "I can't tell if she actually likes me or if she's just polite." "She likes you, Tizzy," Nathan said. "Trust me, if she didn't, you'd know." "She's wonderful, Nathan. You've done an incredible job with her. I'm just trying not to screw her up too badly." Vivian leaned against her car. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." When Mia asked if I was going to marry you, Vivian paused, searching for words. "Is that something you've thought about?" "Not necessarily with me, I mean. Just in general." Nathan considered the question carefully. "Before you?" "Honestly, no. I figured I'd done the whole relationship thing and it didn't work out, and I was okay just being Mia's dad. That felt like enough." He stepped closer. "But now? Yeah, I've thought about it. And? And I don't know what the future looks like, but I know I want you in it, however that works." Vivian kissed him, soft and quick. "Good answer." Nathan watched her drive away, then went back inside to find Mia sitting on the couch with her slime. "I like her," Mia announced. "Yeah?" "Yeah, she's nice, and she's really good at making slime." Mia stretched the purple goo between her hands. "Is she going to stay?" "I hope so, Bug." "Me too," Mia said. Then she went back to playing, and Nathan stood there wondering how he'd gotten so lucky to have these two people in his life. The luck ran out 3 days later. Nathan was at work when his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Is this Nathan Cole?" A woman's voice, professional and clipped. "Speaking." "This is Jennifer Marsh from Pacific Tech Review. I'm working on a piece about Vivian Hale, and I was hoping to get a comment from you." Nathan's stomach dropped. "A comment about what?" "About your relationship with Ms. Hale. How you met, how long you've been together, whether you think the significant difference in your professional and financial positions creates any power dynamics worth examining." "I'm not interested in commenting," Nathan said tightly. "I understand, but I should let you know that the piece is running regardless." We've already spoken to several sources close to Ms. Hale who have expressed concerns about the relationship. I'm giving you the opportunity to share your perspective. My perspective is that my personal life is none of your business. Ms. Hale is a public figure, Mr. Cole. That makes her personal life newsworthy, and by extension, so is yours. Jennifer's tone shifted slightly, almost sympathetic. Look, I'm not trying to ambush you, but people are talking. The story exists whether you participate or not. I'm just trying to make sure it's fair. Nathan closed his eyes. When does it publish? Tomorrow morning. Great, Nathan said flatly. Thanks for the heads up. He hung up and immediately called Vivian. She answered on the first ring. I know, she said before he could speak. They called me an hour ago. My PR team is losing their minds. What do we do? I don't know, Vivian admitted. They're advising me to decline comment, let it blow over. But Nathan, some of the things they're implying, they're saying you're using me for money or status. They're saying I'm having some kind of crisis. Are you? Nathan asked quietly. No, but it's going to look that way. Nathan leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling of his cramped office. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am using you. Stop it. Vivian, be honest. What do I bring to this relationship besides complications? I can't take you to nice places. I can't introduce you to important people. I've got a kid and a mortgage on an apartment that's falling apart and a career that's going exactly nowhere. You bring yourself, Vivian said fiercely. You bring honesty and kindness and the first real thing I've felt in years. Don't you dare minimize that because some journalist wants to turn our relationship into a scandal. Nathan was quiet. Are you still there, Vivian? Vivian asked. Yeah, I'm here. He rubbed his face. I just don't know how to protect you from this. You don't have to protect me. I can handle bad press. What I can't handle is you giving up on us because it got hard. I'm not giving up. Promise me, Vivian said. Promise me you're not going to read whatever garbage they publish tomorrow and decide this isn't worth it. I promise, Nathan said, and he meant it, even though his stomach was twisted in knots and he could already imagine the headlines. The article published at 6 the next morning. Nathan saw it before he'd even gotten out of bed, a push notification from a news app he'd downloaded specifically to monitor this kind of thing. The headline made his jaw clench. Tech CEO Vivian Hale's surprising romance, rebound or real? He read it on his phone, sitting in the dark of his bedroom while Mia slept down the hall. The article was exactly as bad as he'd feared. It painted him as an opportunist, a struggling single dad who'd latched onto a wealthy woman going through a vulnerable time. It quoted unnamed sources saying Vivian had been acting erratically since the breakup with Andrew. It included a photo of them leaving the product launch party, Vivian's hand in his, with a caption that read, Hale with her new companion, Nathan Cole, whose background raises questions about the nature of their relationship. Companion. Like he was a purse dog. There was a paragraph about Vivian's company, speculating about whether her personal choices would impact investor confidence. Another paragraph comparing Nathan to Andrew, complete with a side-by-side breakdown of their respective careers and estimated net worths that made Nathan want to throw his phone across the room. The only thing that stopped him was a text from Vivian. Don't read the comments. Too late. Nathan had already scrolled down. The comments were worse than the article. Hundreds of strangers weighing in on his worth as a human being, on Vivian's judgment, on what this said about successful women and the men who supposedly took advantage of them. His phone rang. Vivian. I read it, Nathan said. I told you not to. I know. He got out of bed, pacing his small bedroom. Vivian, this is bad. They're making me sound like some kind of gold digger. They're making both of us sound pathetic. You're supposedly using me, and I'm supposedly too damaged to see it. It's insulting to everyone involved. What did your team say? That I should lay low. Maybe put out a statement about focusing on work. Definitely not make any public appearances with you for a while. Vivian's voice was tight. They suggested we might want to take a break until things settle down. Nathan stopped pacing. Is that what you want? No. Is it what you want? No. Then we're on the same page, Vivian said. I have a board meeting this morning. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to walk in there and make it clear that my personal life is not up for debate. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Nathan heard Mia stirring in her room. I need to get her ready for school. Okay, call me later? Always. Nathan got Mia through breakfast and out the door without mentioning the article. She was too young to Google him, too young to know what was being said, but he knew it was only a matter of time before it filtered down somehow. A parent at school saying something, a kid overhearing their parents talk. The thought made him sick. At work, Tom pulled him aside before he'd even sat down. You saw it, Tom said. Not a question. Yeah, it's not as bad as you think. It's worse, Nathan said. They basically called me a leech. Tom sighed. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. Some people here are talking. There's concern that this association might impact the company's reputation. Nathan's blood went cold. Are you firing me? What? No. But I am saying you need to keep your head down for a while. Don't give anyone ammunition. I'm not doing anything wrong, Nathan said, his voice harder than he intended. I'm dating someone. That's it. That's the whole story. I know that. You know that. But perception matters. And right now the perception is, I don't care about the perception. Nathan interrupted. I care about the truth. Tom looked at him for a long moment. Just be careful, okay? That's all I'm saying. Nathan spent the rest of the day fielding looks from coworkers who'd clearly read the article. Some were sympathetic. Others were curious in a way that felt invasive. A few seemed openly judgmental, like he'd violated some unspoken rule by dating above his station. By the time he picked Mia up from school, Nathan was exhausted. Daddy, Emma's mom asked me if you have a girlfriend, Mia said as they drove home. Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What did you say? I said yes, and her name is Vivian, and she's really good at making slime. Despite everything, Nathan smiled. That's the perfect answer, Bug. Emma's mom looked weird when I said it, though, like she wanted to ask more questions but didn't. People are going to be curious, Nathan said carefully. That's normal. Are you and Vivian in trouble? No, sweetheart, we're not in trouble. Then why do you look worried? Nathan glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror. Sometimes grown-ups have to deal with people saying things that aren't true. It's frustrating, but it doesn't change what's real. Mia thought about this. Like when Tommy said I cheated on the spelling test, but I didn't? Exactly like that. Tommy's a jerk. Mia said, sorry, Tommy makes poor choices. Nathan laughed despite himself. Better. That night, after Mia was asleep, Vivian came over. She looked drained, her usual composure frayed at the edges. How was the board meeting? Nathan asked, pulling her into a hug. Tense. A lot of pointed questions about my judgment and whether I'm distracted. One of them actually suggested I might need to step back from day-to-day operations until my personal situation stabilizes. What did you say? I told them my personal life has no bearing on my ability to run this company, and if they disagreed, they were welcome to bring it to a vote. Vivian pulled back to look at him. They backed down, but Nathan, this isn't over. They're going to keep pushing. So we push back. How? Nathan didn't have an answer. They sat on the couch in silence, the weight of everything pressing down on them. I met with my PR team after the board meeting, Vivian said eventually. They want me to do an interview, control the narrative, show that I'm confident in my choices, make it clear this isn't some impulsive rebound. Okay, that sounds smart. They want you to do it with me. Nathan's head snapped up. What? A joint interview. Show that we're a united front, that this is a real relationship built on mutual respect. They think it might help. Vivian hesitated. But only if you're comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with any of this, Nathan admitted. But if it helps you, if it makes this easier, then yeah, I'll do it. Vivian's eyes searched his face. You don't have to. This isn't your mess to clean up. It's not a mess. It's our life, and I'm not ashamed of that. Even when strangers are calling you a gold digger? Even then. Nathan took her hand. I love you, Vivian. I don't care what some article says. I don't care what your board thinks. I care about you and Mia and building something real. That's it. Vivian's breath caught. You love me? Yeah, Nathan said, realizing he'd never actually said it out loud before. I do. I have for a while. I love you too, Vivian said, her voice breaking slightly. Even though this is a disaster and we're probably making everything worse. Probably, Nathan agreed. They kissed, and for a moment the outside noise faded. It was just them, in this cramped apartment with its sagging couch and mystery stains, choosing each other despite everything. The interview was scheduled for the following week. Vivian's team prepped them both, coaching Nathan on how to answer difficult questions, rehearsing responses that sounded natural but stayed on message. It felt absurd, practicing how to explain that he loved someone, but Nathan went along with it. The interviewer was a woman named Claire Winters, who hosted a popular local talk show. She was known for being tough but fair, and Vivian's team thought she'd give them the best shot at being heard. They met at a studio downtown, arriving separately per the PR team's suggestion. Nathan wore his best suit, not borrowed this time, but purchased specifically for this occasion with money he probably shouldn't have spent. Vivian looked polished and professional in a way that reminded Nathan of the first time he'd seen her at that restaurant. Claire greeted them warmly, but Nathan could see the calculation behind her smile. This was content for her. Drama. A story worth telling. They sat on a small couch under bright lights, cameras pointed at them from multiple angles. Nathan tried not to look as terrified as he felt. Thank you both for being here, Claire began once they were rolling. I know the last week has been challenging. That's putting it mildly, Vivian said with a slight smile. Let's address the elephant in the room. Vivian, you ended a very public engagement and immediately began a relationship with Nathan. Some people have characterized this as impulsive or even reckless. What do you say to that? Vivian didn't hesitate. I say that ending my engagement to Andrew was one of the most carefully considered decisions I've ever made. I spent months, years actually, in a relationship that looked right on paper but felt wrong in practice. Walking away from that wasn't impulsive, it was overdue. And starting something new so quickly? Wasn't quick, Vivian said. Nathan and I had known each other for a while before anything romantic developed. We built a friendship first, a foundation of trust and honesty. That's not reckless. That's intentional. Claire turned to Nathan. Nathan, you've been characterized in some coverage as, I'll be blunt, someone who's using Vivian for financial gain. How do you respond to that? Nathan had prepared for this question, but the words still felt awkward in his mouth. I respond by saying that anyone who thinks I'm in this relationship for money doesn't understand either of us. Vivian doesn't need someone to use her. She needs someone who sees her as a person, not a position or a paycheck. That's what I offer. Not wealth or status, but honesty and respect. But you can't deny that there's a significant financial disparity between you. No, I can't deny that, Nathan said. Vivian has built an incredibly successful company. She's achieved things I'll never achieve professionally. But our relationship isn't a business transaction. It's not about what I can gain or what she can provide. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better, who challenges you, who makes you feel seen. He looked at Vivian. That's what we have, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Claire leaned forward. Vivian, some members of your board have reportedly expressed concerns about this relationship. How do you balance your personal life with your professional responsibilities? The same way anyone does, Vivian said. By being clear about my priorities and not letting other people dictate what my life should look like. I've spent years building a company I'm proud of. I'm not going to sacrifice that. But I'm also not going to sacrifice my happiness because it makes some people uncomfortable. Do you think there's a double standard at play here? If you were a male CEO dating someone less professionally accomplished, would there be the same scrutiny? Absolutely, Vivian said without hesitation. Successful women are held to impossible standards. We're supposed to be ambitious but not threatening, confident but not arrogant. And apparently, we're supposed to only date men who match our resume, because anything else must mean we're having a crisis. Claire turned back to Nathan. How does Mia feel about all of this? Your daughter? Nathan felt his protective instincts kick in. Mia is 6 years old and doesn't need to be part of this conversation. But I will say that she's met Vivian, and they get along beautifully. Mia's happiness and well-being are my first priority, always. I wouldn't bring someone into her life who didn't treat her with kindness and respect. And Vivian does? Absolutely. The interview continued for another 20 minutes, covering everything from how they met to their plans for the future. Nathan let Vivian take the lead on most of it, jumping in only when directly asked. By the time Claire wrapped, Nathan felt wrung out. That was great, Claire said once the cameras stopped. Really authentic. I think people are going to respond well. Vivian smiled professionally, but Nathan could see the tension in her shoulders. They left the studio together this time, no longer bothering with the optics of arriving separately. How do you think it went? Nathan asked once they were in Vivian's car. I have no idea, Vivian admitted. I've done 100 interviews, but I've never talked about my personal life like that. It felt exposing. Yeah, Nathan agreed. But maybe that's good. Maybe people needed to see that we're not hiding. Or maybe we just gave them more ammunition. Nathan reached over and took her hand. Either way, we did it together. The interview aired 2 days later. The response was mixed. Some people praised Vivian for being open and honest, for challenging the double standards she talked about. Others doubled down on their criticism, calling the whole thing a PR stunt designed to rehabilitate her image. But something shifted. The conversation moved from pure speculation to actual discussion. People started debating the larger issues about power dynamics in relationships, about what successful women were allowed to want, about whether the media's focus on Vivian's personal life was fair or justified. It wasn't perfect. There were still plenty of people who thought Nathan was using her, who thought Vivian had made a terrible mistake. But there were also voices defending them, pointing out that two adults had every right to build a relationship on their own terms. Nathan's co-workers stopped giving him quite so many sideways looks. Vivian's board backed off slightly, focusing their energy on the actual business rather than her personal choices. And slowly, painfully, things started to stabilize. 3 weeks after the interview, Vivian showed up at Nathan's apartment on a Friday night with Thai food and an exhausted smile. I made a decision, she said as Nathan let her in. What kind of decision? I'm stepping back from some of my responsibilities. Not leaving the company, but delegating more. Trusting my team to handle things I've been micromanaging. She set the food on the counter. I realized that I've been so focused on proving I can do everything alone that I forgot I don't have to. Nathan pulled her into a hug. That sounds healthy. It sounds terrifying, Vivian corrected. But necessary. I want a life, Nathan, not just a career. And that means making space for things, for people that matter. Mia appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas from an earlier nap. Vivian, did you bring spring rolls? I did, Vivian said, pulling away from Nathan to smile at Mia. With extra peanut sauce, just for you. Mia grinned and ran to the table. Nathan watched Vivian follow her, the two of them chattering about school and dinosaurs and whether spring rolls counted as dinner or just a really good snack. And he thought, not for the first time, that maybe they were going to be okay. Not perfect, not without complications or hard days or moments of doubt, but okay, together. The calm lasted exactly 6 weeks before everything fell apart again. It started with a phone call Nathan wasn't supposed to overhear. He'd brought Mia to Vivian's place for the first time, a sprawling loft in a renovated warehouse building with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Mia was in the living room area, carefully examining a sculpture made of twisted metal and asking questions about whether it was supposed to be a dinosaur, while Nathan helped Vivian unpack groceries in the kitchen. Vivian's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face went carefully blank. I need to take this, she said. It's Richard Pearson, the investor from the product launch. Nathan nodded and stepped back, giving her space. But the loft was open concept and sound carried. Richard, hi, Vivian said, her voice professional. Yes, I saw the quarterly reports. The numbers are solid. A pause while Richard spoke. I understand your concerns, but I don't think... Another pause, longer this time. Nathan watched Vivian's posture stiffen. That's not fair, Vivian said, her tone hardening. My personal life has no bearing on the company's performance. Nathan's stomach dropped. He moved toward the living room trying to give her actual privacy, but he caught fragments anyway, asking me to choose between not an ultimatum I'm willing to accept. Then maybe we need to have a larger conversation about whether this partnership still makes sense. The call ended. Vivian stood in the kitchen, gripping her phone, her knuckles white. Nathan gave her a moment, then walked over. What happened? Vivian looked up, and he saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Defeat. Richard wants me to step down as CEO. The words hung in the air like smoke. What? Nathan said. He can't do that. The company is yours. Not entirely. I have investors, a board. Richard's been rallying them, saying my recent choices show poor judgment, saying the negative press is affecting investor confidence. Vivian's laugh was bitter. He actually suggested that if I really cared about the company, I'd put someone else in charge until my situation stabilizes. Nathan felt rage building in his chest. Your situation, he means me. He means us. So what are you going to do? Vivian set her phone down carefully, like it might shatter. I don't know. Fight, probably. Call an emergency board meeting, make my case. But Nathan, if I fight this and lose, if they vote to remove me, I lose everything I've built. They can't actually force you out, can they? They can make it impossible for me to do my job. They can withhold funding for key initiatives. They can create enough friction that running the company becomes untenable. Oh, Vivian rubbed her temples. I've seen it happen to other founders. Death by 1,000 cuts. Nathan looked at her. This woman who'd walked away from a safe engagement, who'd defended their relationship on television, who'd restructured her entire life to make room for something real. And now she was being punished for it. This is my fault, he said quietly. Don't, Vivian said sharply. Don't you dare make this about you. This is about power and control, and old men who think they know what's best for everyone. This isn't your fault. But if we hadn't what? Fallen in love? Built something honest? Vivian's voice cracked. I'm not going to regret that. I refuse to. Mia appeared in the doorway, her face worried. Why are you guys yelling? Neither of them had realized they were raising their voices. We're not yelling, Bug, Nathan said, forcing his voice to soften. We're just talking about grown-up stuff. It sounds like yelling, Mia said. She looked at Vivian. Are you sad? Vivian took a shaky breath. Yeah, sweetie, I'm a little sad right now. Do you want to see my new dinosaur drawing? It usually makes Daddy feel better when he's sad. Despite everything, Vivian smiled. I would love to see it. Mia ran to get her backpack, and Nathan pulled Vivian into his arms. We'll figure this out, he said into her hair. What if there's nothing to figure out? Vivian whispered. What if I have to choose between the company and you? Then you choose the company, Nathan said, even though the words felt like swallowing glass. You've worked too hard to let them take it from you. Vivian pulled back to look at him. You can't mean that. I mean it. I'm not going to be the reason you lose everything. You're not a reason, Nathan. You're a person I love. That's not the same thing. Mia returned with a drawing of what appeared to be a brachiosaurus wearing a crown. This is Princess Longneck. She's the queen of all the plant eaters. Vivian took the drawing with trembling hands. She's perfect. They spent the rest of the afternoon pretending everything was fine. They ordered pizza. They watched Mia's favorite movie about talking animals. They acted like a normal family doing normal things, and the whole time Nathan could feel the weight of what was coming pressing down on all of them. That night, after he'd put Mia to bed, Nathan called Vivian. How are you holding up, yes? He asked. I'm not, Vivian admitted. I've been going through the bylaws, trying to figure out what leverage I actually have. It's not looking good, Nathan. If Richard gets 3 more board members on his side, he can call for a vote of no confidence. Can you replace board members? Not easily, and not fast enough. Vivian sighed. I have a meeting with my lawyer tomorrow. Maybe she'll have ideas I haven't thought of. Do you want me to come with you? No, that'll just make things worse. They're already using you as evidence of my poor judgment. The words stung, even though Nathan knew she didn't mean them that way. I'm sorry, Vivian said immediately. That came out wrong. I just meant, I know what you meant, and you're right. Me showing up would only add fuel to the fire. They were both quiet for a moment. Nathan, Vivian said softly, if I asked you to stay away for a while, not break up, just create some distance, would you understand? Nathan's chest tightened. Is that what you're asking? I don't know. Maybe. I'm trying to figure out how to save the company without sacrificing us, and I can't see a path forward that doesn't involve one or the other. Then pick the company, Nathan said again. I'll still be here when the dust settles. What if it never settles? Nathan didn't have an answer for that. The lawyers' meeting didn't go well. Vivian called Nathan the next evening, sounding exhausted. She confirmed what I already suspected. Richard has the votes. If he calls the meeting, I'm out. When's the meeting? Next week. He's giving me time to reconsider my priorities. Vivian's voice was hollow. He actually used those words, like I'm a child who needs to think about what I've done. What are your options? I can fight and lose publicly. I can step down voluntarily and retain some dignity, or I can try to negotiate some kind of compromise where I stay on in a reduced capacity. Vivian paused. My lawyer thinks the compromise is the smartest play. What do you think? I think I'm tired of letting other people tell me how to live my life. Nathan heard the fight in her voice and felt something shift. So fight. I'll lose. Maybe, but you'll lose on your terms. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. I'd have to take them all on. Richard, the board members who've sided with him, probably some of my own team. It would get ugly. When has that ever stopped you? Vivian laughed, but it sounded more like crying. I'm scared, Nathan. I know, but you're also the toughest person I've ever met, and whatever you decide, I'm with you. Even if it costs you? Even then. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Vivian spent the weekend preparing, pulling together data on company performance, documenting every successful quarter under her leadership, building her case that personal choices had nothing to do with professional competence. Nathan stayed away, per Vivian's request, but he texted her constantly, checking in, offering encouragement, reminding her that she wasn't alone even when she felt like it. On Monday night, Vivian showed up at his apartment unannounced. Nathan opened the door to find her standing there in jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked younger, more vulnerable. Hi, she said. Hi, Nathan echoed, stepping aside to let her in. Is everything okay? No, but I needed to see you. Mia was already asleep, so they sat on the couch in the dim light from the kitchen. Vivian leaned against Nathan, and he wrapped his arms around her. I've been thinking, Vivian said, about what happens if they vote me out. You'll start something new, build another company, show them they made a mistake. Maybe. Or maybe I'll take the insurance payout and disappear for a while. Travel. Figure out who I am when I'm not someone's CEO. She tilted her head to look at him. Would you come with me? Nathan's heart stuttered. What? If I walked away from all of this, the company, the investors, the whole mess, would you come with me? You and Mia. We could go somewhere new, start over. Nathan wanted to say yes. Wanted to imagine the three of them in some other city, building a life that didn't involve board meetings and bad press, and people judging every choice they made. But he thought about Mia's school, her friends, the stability he'd fought so hard to give her. Thought about his job and his apartment and the life he'd built here, however imperfect. I can't, he said, and watched Vivian's face fall. Not because I don't want to, but because Mia needs consistency. She needs her routine, her school, her mom. Even though Carla's barely around, Mia needs to know she's nearby. I can't uproot her because things got hard for us. Vivian nodded, but Nathan saw the hurt in her eyes. That doesn't mean I don't want to be with you, Nathan said quickly. It just means I have to think about what's best for her first, always. I know. You're a good father. It's one of the things I love most about you. Vivian sat up, putting space between them. But Nathan, I don't know if I can stay here. If they force me out, I don't know if I can handle watching someone else run the company I built. Seeing them in my office, making decisions I should be making. So we do long distance? Or we'd end things, Vivian said quietly, cleanly, before it gets messier than it already is. Nathan felt like he'd been punched. You're talking about breaking up. I'm talking about being realistic. We've been fighting for this relationship for months, and it keeps costing us. It's cost you your privacy, your reputation. It's about to cost me my company. At some point, we have to ask if the price is too high. The price is never too high, Nathan said fiercely. Not for something real. But what if we're wrong? What if this isn't as real as we think it is? What if we're just two people who got swept up in the drama and mistook intensity for love? Nathan stood up, anger and hurt warring in his chest. Don't do that. Don't minimize what we have just because you're scared. I am scared, Vivian said, standing to face him. I'm terrified because I've never felt this way about anyone, and I don't know how to protect it. I don't know how to keep fighting when everything around us is telling us to stop. So we stop listening to everyone else. And then what? We lose anyway? I lose the company, you lose your job, Mia loses her stability, and for what? For a relationship that might not survive the fallout? Or might survive because it's stronger than any of that, Nathan shot back. You don't know. Neither of us knows, but walking away now, that's the only guaranteed failure. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. I can't ask you to keep sacrificing for me. You're not asking, I'm choosing. They stood there in Nathan's cramped living room, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Finally, Vivian moved toward the door. I should go, she said. I have an early meeting before the board. Nathan wanted to stop her. Wanted to say something that would fix this, that would make the fear go away. But he couldn't find the words. Good luck tomorrow, he said instead. Vivian paused at the door. Nathan, I love you, he said. Whatever happens tomorrow, that doesn't change. Vivian nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and left. Nathan stood there for a long time after she was gone, staring at the closed door and wondering if he'd just watched the most important thing in his life walk away. The next morning, Nathan couldn't focus on anything. He dropped Mia at school, went through the motions at work, but his mind was in that boardroom with Vivian, imagining her walking in alone, making her case, facing down people who'd already decided she wasn't worth defending. His phone stayed silent all morning, all afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Tom stopped by Nathan's desk. You okay? You look terrible. I'm fine. You're not fine. You've been staring at that same spreadsheet for an hour. Tom lowered his voice. Is this about Vivian? Nathan nodded. The board meeting? How did you... Word gets around, especially when it's about someone like her. Tom pulled up a chair. Look, I know I warned you before about getting involved with her world. But for what it's worth, I think what you two have is pretty remarkable. Most people don't fight that hard for anything. Might not matter, Nathan said. They're probably voting her out as we speak. Then she'll land on her feet. People like Vivian always do. Nathan wanted to believe that, but he kept thinking about the defeat in her voice last night, the way she'd suggested walking away might be easier than fighting. His phone finally rang at 4:30. Vivian. Nathan answered immediately. What happened? I won, Vivian said, and she sounded stunned. Nathan, I won. What? Richard called for the vote. He was so confident you could see it in his face. But when they actually counted hands, 3 people who he thought were with him abstained. 3 others voted to keep me. It wasn't even close. Nathan felt relief flood through him. How? I don't know. I gave my whole speech about company performance and personal autonomy, but I thought I was just going through the motions. Then Jessica, my COO, stood up and said if they voted me out, she'd leave too. And then 2 other senior team members said the same thing. And suddenly, Richard's power play didn't look so powerful anymore. So you're staying. I'm staying. Richard already resigned from the board, said he couldn't work with someone who prioritized personal indulgence over fiduciary responsibility. Vivian laughed, giddy with relief. I've never been happier to be called indulgent in my life. Vivian, that's incredible. I know. I still can't believe it. Her voice softened. Nathan, I'm sorry about last night, about suggesting we should end things. I was scared and tired and I know, Nathan said. It's okay. It's not okay. I almost walked away from the best thing that's ever happened to me because I was too afraid to keep fighting. That's not who I want to be. Nathan smiled, feeling the tension of the last 24 hours finally release. So what happens now? Now I go home, drink an entire bottle of wine, and probably cry for 3 hours straight. Vivian paused. And then tomorrow? I'd really like to see you. And Mia, if that's okay. More than okay. Nathan? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I was ready to give up on us. Never, Nathan said. I told you. I'm all in. After they hung up, Nathan sat at his desk trying to process what had just happened. Vivian had survived. They'd survived. Tom appeared again. Good news, I'm guessing. Told. The best, Nathan said. Good. You looked like you were about to throw yourself out a window. Nathan laughed. It was close. That evening, Nathan picked Mia up from school and took her for ice cream, a celebration she didn't fully understand but enthusiastically supported anyway. Is Vivian coming over tonight? Mia asked, chocolate ice cream smeared across her face. Not tonight, but tomorrow. Good. I made her a new drawing. It's a T-Rex playing soccer. I'm sure she'll love it. Mia swung her legs, attacking her ice cream cone with single-minded focus. Then she said, Daddy, are you going to marry Vivian? Nathan nearly choked on his coffee. What? Are you going to marry her? Like with a wedding and a cake and everything? I don't know, Bug. We haven't talked about that yet. But you love her, right? Yeah, I do. And she loves you? I think so. Then you should probably marry her, Mia said with the confident logic of a 6-year-old. That's what people do when they love each other. Nathan smiled. It's a little more complicated than that. Why? Because marriage is a big decision. It's not just about loving someone. It's about building a whole life together. And Vivian and I are still figuring out what that looks like. Mia considered this while licking her cone. But you want to marry her someday, right? Nathan thought about it. About Vivian standing in his kitchen making slime with Mia. About her showing up at his apartment in the middle of the night because she needed to see him. About the way she fought for what mattered and refused to settle for less than real. Yeah, he said. Someday, I do. Then you should tell her, Mia said matter-of-factly. Because sometimes grown-ups are dumb about feelings and they need kids to explain stuff. Nathan laughed. You might be right about that, Bug. 3 months passed, and things settled into something that almost resembled normal. Vivian rebuilt her board with people she trusted. She delegated more, worked fewer 70-hour weeks, and started actually taking weekends off. The negative press faded as new scandals took its place. People stopped caring about who she was dating and started focusing on the company's newest product launch, which was actually generating legitimate buzz. Nathan got a promotion at work, not because of Vivian, but because he'd been quietly excelling for years, and someone finally noticed. The raise wasn't life-changing, but it meant he could move to a slightly bigger apartment in a slightly better neighborhood. Mia would get her own room. There'd be space for guests. They'd fallen into a rhythm. Vivian came over most weekends. Sometimes Nathan and Mia went to her place. They had dinner together 3 or 4 nights a week, rotating between cooking and takeout. Mia started calling Vivian by her first name without any self-consciousness, and Vivian kept a drawer at Nathan's place full of kid-friendly craft supplies. It was domestic, ordinary, and Nathan had never been happier. One Saturday in late spring, Nathan took Mia to the park while Vivian worked through a contract negotiation. They were on the swings when Mia said, I wish Vivian was here. She had to work, Bug, but we'll see her tonight. I know. I just miss her when she's not around. Mia pumped her legs, swinging higher. Do you think she misses us? I know she does. How do you know? Because she told me, and because I can tell by the way she looks at us. Mia thought about this. Daddy, when you marry Vivian... If I marry Vivian, Nathan corrected gently. When? Mia insisted. When you marry her, will she move in with us? Or will we move to her big apartment? Nathan slowed his swing. Why are you thinking about this? Because Emma's dad got married last week, and Emma had to move to a new house. She doesn't like it because her room is smaller and she can't walk to school anymore. That sounds hard for Emma. Yeah. So if we move, can we stay close to my school? And can I bring all my dinosaurs? Nathan's heart clenched. Bug, I'm not getting married right now. And if I ever do, we'll make sure any changes are okay with you first. Your happiness matters more than anything. More than Vivian? But Vivian would say the same thing. Your happiness matters most. Mia nodded, reassured, and went back to swinging. But the conversation stuck with Nathan. Mia was thinking about the future, their future, as something that included Vivian permanently. And that meant Nathan needed to start thinking about it too. That night, after Mia was asleep, and Vivian had come over with Thai food and stories about her frustrating contract negotiation, Nathan brought it up. Mia asked me when we were getting married, he said. Vivian froze, pad thai halfway to her mouth. What? Not if. When. Apparently she's decided it's inevitable. Vivian set down her food. What did you tell her? That we're still figuring things out. That marriage is a big decision. Nathan paused. But she's not wrong, is she? About it being inevitable. What are you saying? Nathan turned to face her fully. I'm saying that I love you, that I want to build a life with you, that I think about our future constantly, where we'll live, how we'll make this work, what it looks like when Mia's older and needs us both. Nathan, I'm not proposing, he said quickly. Not yet, but I want you to know that I'm thinking about it, that when I imagine the rest of my life, you're in it, always. Vivian's eyes were bright. I think about it too, about waking up in the same place as you every morning, about being there when Mia needs help with homework or has a bad dream, about building something that's ours, not mine or yours, but ours. So we're on the same page? We're on the same page, Vivian confirmed, terrifyingly on the same page. Nathan kissed her, slow and deep, and felt the last piece of doubt dissolve. This was real. This was lasting, and whatever came next, they'd face it together. 2 weeks later, Nathan started looking at engagement rings. He did it on his lunch breaks, browsing jewelry stores with the uncomfortable awareness that he had no idea what he was doing. The prices made him dizzy. Even the modest options cost more than 2 months of rent. But he wanted to do this right, wanted Vivian to have something beautiful, something that reflected how much she meant to him. He was in his 4th store, trying to explain to a patient salesperson that he needed something elegant but not ostentatious, when his phone rang. Carla. Nathan hadn't heard from Mia's mother in 3 months. He stepped outside to answer. Hey, he said, everything okay? I need to talk to you about something. Carla's voice was strained. Can we meet? In person? Nathan's stomach tightened. Is Mia okay? Mia's fine. This isn't about her, not directly. Carla paused. I'm moving, Nathan, to Portland. I got a job offer I can't turn down. Nathan processed this. Okay, that's only a few hours away. We can make it work. There's more. I'm getting married. Oh. Nathan didn't know what to say to that. Congratulations? Thanks. But the thing is, Marcus, my fiancé, he has 2 kids, and we've been talking about maybe trying for more stability for everyone, which means... Carla took a breath. I want more time with Mia. Not full custody, but more than just occasional visits. Maybe a regular every other weekend schedule. Maybe some school breaks. Nathan felt the ground shift. You want joint custody. I know I haven't been around as much as I should, but I'm in a better place now. I'm ready to step up. Carla, you can't just decide you're ready after 6 years of being part-time. Mia has a routine. She has stability. She has a life here. She also has a mother who loves her and wants to be more present. That's not a bad thing, Nathan. It's not that simple. I know. That's why I'm calling. I want us to work this out together, not through lawyers. But Nathan, I'm serious about this. I'm going to pursue it either way. After they hung up, Nathan stood on the sidewalk outside the jewelry store, feeling like he'd just been hit by a truck. He called Vivian. Carla wants joint custody, he said without preamble. What? Vivian's shock was immediate. Can she do that? I don't know. Maybe. She's moving, getting married, suddenly wants to be a more involved parent. Nathan rubbed his face. I don't know if she's serious or if this is some impulse that'll fade in 3 months, but she said she'd pursue it either way. What are you going to do? Fight it. I have to. Mia's whole life is here. Her school, her friends, her home. I can't let Carla disrupt that because she's suddenly decided motherhood fits her new life plan. Do you need a lawyer? Probably, which I can't afford, but I guess I'll figure it out. Nathan, I can help. No, Nathan said firmly. I appreciate it, but this isn't your problem to solve. Mia is part of your life, which makes her part of mine. If you need help, I want to help. Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some independence, some sense that he could handle his own problems, but the truth was, he was overwhelmed and scared and had no idea how to navigate a custody battle. Let me think about it, he said finally. Okay, but I'm here. Whatever you need. That night, Nathan told Mia about Carla's move in the gentlest terms he could manage, that her mom was going to Portland, that she'd still see her sometimes, that nothing was changing right now. Mia took it better than expected. Will I have to go to Portland? Maybe sometimes, for visits. Do I have to live there? No, Bug. You live with me. That's not changing. Mia nodded, but Nathan could see the worry in her eyes. She'd heard enough conversations between adults to know when something was wrong. Is Mommy mad at us? Mia asked quietly. No, sweetheart. She's not mad. She just wants to see you more, which is actually a good thing. But I don't want to see her more. I want to stay here with you and Vivian. Nathan pulled his daughter into a hug. I know, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure your life stays exactly how you want it. He just wasn't sure he could keep that promise. The custody negotiations dragged on for 3 months, and they were uglier than Nathan had imagined possible. Carla hired a lawyer who painted Nathan as a workaholic father, using his girlfriend's money to create an artificially stable home. Nathan hired a lawyer he could barely afford, who argued that Carla had willingly abandoned primary parenting responsibilities and couldn't suddenly change the terms because it suited her new life. They sat in mediation sessions that felt more like hostage negotiations, both of them tense and exhausted, while strangers dissected their failures as parents and human beings. The worst part was watching Mia caught in the middle. She started having nightmares, started asking questions Nathan didn't know how to answer, started clinging to him in ways she hadn't since she was 3 years old, like she was afraid he might disappear if she let go. I don't want to go to Portland, she told him one night after a particularly bad dream. I don't want a new family. I just want us. Nathan held her, feeling helpless. I'm doing everything I can, Bug. Oh, but what if it's not enough? That question haunted him. Vivian was there through all of it, steady and unwavering. She sat with Nathan through the worst of the mediation prep. She distracted Mia on the hardest days, taking her to museums and parks and anywhere that felt normal. She offered to pay for Nathan's lawyer, and when he refused, she found other ways to help. Researching custody law, connecting him with parents who'd been through similar battles, just being present when everything felt impossible. You don't have to do this, Nathan told her one night after a particularly brutal mediation session. This isn't your mess. Stop saying that, Vivian said, exhaustion making her voice sharp. Mia is part of your life. You are part of my life. That makes this my mess, too. But you didn't sign up for... I signed up for you, Vivian interrupted. All of you. The good parts and the hard parts and everything in between. So stop trying to protect me from your life like I'm some fragile thing that can't handle reality. Nathan looked at her. This woman who'd fought her own battles and won, who'd chosen him despite everything it cost her, who was now fighting beside him without hesitation. I love you, he said. I love you too, Vivian said. Now stop being noble and let me help. The mediation finally reached a conclusion in late summer. The agreement wasn't what Nathan wanted, but it wasn't as bad as he'd feared. Carla would get Mia for 2 weekends a month and alternating holidays. It was more than Nathan liked, but less than Carla had initially demanded. More importantly, Mia would stay in Seattle, stay in her school, stay in the life she'd built. Nathan signed the papers feeling like he'd lost something he couldn't name. It's not fair he told Vivian that night. Carla got to walk away for 6 years, and now she gets rewarded for suddenly deciding to be a parent again. No, it's not fair, Vivian agreed. But Mia gets to know her mother. That's not nothing. What if Carla hurts her? What if she gets bored again and disappears? Then you'll be there to pick up the pieces, like you always are. Vivian took his hand. You can't protect Mia from every possible pain, Nathan. You can only love her enough that she knows she's safe with you, no matter what. Nathan knew she was right. It didn't make it easier. The first weekend Mia went to Portland, Nathan paced his apartment like a caged animal. He cleaned things that didn't need cleaning. He reorganized closets. He checked his phone every 10 minutes in case Mia called, in case something went wrong, in case she needed him. Vivian showed up around noon with groceries and a determined expression. You're going to drive yourself crazy, she said, unpacking ingredients Nathan didn't recognize. So we're cooking. Something complicated that requires focus. I don't know how to cook anything complicated. Good, I'll teach you. They spent the afternoon making homemade pasta from scratch, a process that involved flour everywhere, dough that wouldn't cooperate, and Vivian laughing at Nathan's increasingly frustrated attempts to work the pasta maker. It was messy and chaotic and exactly the distraction he needed. You're terrible at this, Vivian said, watching Nathan's latest batch of noodles come out uneven and lumpy. I'm aware. But you're trying. That counts for something. They ate the imperfect pasta at Nathan's small kitchen table, and Nathan felt some of the tension ease. Thank you, he said, for this, for being here. Where else would I be? Nathan looked at her across the table, flour still dusting her hair, her sleeves rolled up, completely at home in his cramped kitchen. And he made a decision. I want to ask you something, he said, but I need you to know that there's no pressure. If the answer is no, or not yet, or maybe someday, that's all okay. I just need to say this. Vivian set down her fork, her expression suddenly serious. Okay. Nathan took a breath. He hadn't planned this. Didn't have a ring or a speech or any of the things he'd imagined having when this moment came. But sitting there in his messy kitchen, eating imperfect pasta with the woman he loved, it felt right. I want to marry you, he said simply. I want to build a life together that's ours, not yours or mine, but something we create from scratch, messy and imperfect and real. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to teach you how to braid hair and have you teach me how to run a business meeting. I want us to be a family, officially and permanently. Vivian's eyes were bright. Nathan, I know the timing is terrible, he continued. I know we're in the middle of custody negotiations and company drama and 100 other complications. I know I can't offer you the kind of life you're used to, but I can offer you something real, something honest, something worth fighting for. Vivian reached across the table and took his hands. Are you asking me to marry you? Not yet, not officially, but I'm telling you that I want to, soon. And I wanted you to know that so you could think about it. So, yes, Vivian said. Nathan stopped mid-sentence. What? Yes, I'll marry you. Whenever you officially ask, the answer is yes. Nathan felt something enormous swell in his chest. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Vivian smiled through tears. You're right. The timing is terrible, and nothing about this is conventional, and we're probably going to screw up 1,000 times. But I want to screw up with you. I want the messy, imperfect, real thing we've built. I want to be Mia's stepmom and your wife, and part of this strange, wonderful family you've created. Nathan stood up, pulled Vivian to her feet, and kissed her. It was the kind of kiss that felt like a promise, like a beginning, like everything they'd fought for crystallizing into something tangible and true. When they broke apart, Vivian was laughing and crying at the same time. I don't have a ring yet, Nathan said. I was looking, but then the custody thing happened and I don't need a ring right now. I just need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me we'll do this on our terms. Not what people expect or what looks right, but what feels true to us. Deal, Nathan said. No performance, just us. They spent the rest of the evening planning nothing and everything, talking about where they might live, how they'd blend their lives, what it would look like when Mia got older and needed them both. It was premature and presumptuous and absolutely necessary. They were building a future out of words and hope, and it felt more real than anything Nathan had ever touched. When Mia came back from Portland on Sunday evening, she was quiet in a way that made Nathan nervous. "How was it, Bug?" he asked as they drove home. "Okay, I guess." "Just okay." Mia shrugged. "Marcus is nice, his kids are loud. Mommy's apartment is really small and I had to sleep on the couch." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Did you tell your mom you were uncomfortable?" "She said we're getting a bigger place soon and I'll have my own room." Mia picked at her seatbelt. "But I don't want my own room there. I want to stay here." "You are staying here. Portland is just for visits." "Promise?" "Promise." But that night, after Mia was asleep, Nathan got a text from Carla. "Mia seems sad this weekend. Is everything okay at home?" Nathan stared at the message, anger rising in his chest. Carla had the audacity to question whether Mia was okay at home when she'd barely been present for 6 years. When she'd created this entire situation by demanding custody she hadn't earned. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, "She's adjusting. Give her time." Carla's reply came immediately. "Maybe we should talk about making this transition easier for her." Nathan didn't respond. He was too tired to fight, too worn down by months of negotiations and lawyers and trying to protect his daughter from the consequences of adult decisions. Vivian came over the next evening and found Nathan staring at his laptop, searching for apartments. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Looking for a bigger place. 2 bedrooms so Mia can have her own room and we have space for—" He stopped, realizing he was getting ahead of himself. "For us," Vivian finished. "You're looking for a place for us. Is that crazy?" No, it's practical." Vivian sat down beside him. "But Nathan, you don't have to do this alone. We could look together. We could figure out what works for both of us." Nathan closed the laptop. "I don't want you to feel like you have to give up your life to fit into mine." "What if I want to? What if the life I've been living, the big loft, the constant work, the image management, what if I'm tired of all of that? What if I want something smaller and messier and more real?" "You'd give up your place?" "I'd trade it for something we choose together." Vivian smiled. "Besides, have you seen what I pay in rent? We could get something twice the size for half the cost if we're smart about it." They spent the evening looking at listings, narrowing down neighborhoods, talking about what mattered. Good schools for Mia, enough space for everyone to have their own room, somewhere that felt like a fresh start rather than just an expansion of Nathan's current life. It was domestic and mundane and utterly perfect. 3 weeks later, they found a place, a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with a small yard and a kitchen that didn't make Nathan feel claustrophobic. It was more than Nathan could afford alone but manageable if they split costs. Vivian could walk to a coffee shop she loved. Mia's new room had windows that looked out on trees. "This is it," Vivian said, standing in the empty living room. "This is home." Nathan looked around the space, imagining it filled with their combined furniture, their combined lives. Imagining Mia running through these rooms, Vivian working at the kitchen table, the 3 of them building something that belonged to all of them. "Yeah," he said, "this is home." They moved in over Thanksgiving weekend, a chaotic process involving borrowed trucks, furniture that didn't fit through doorways, and Mia directing traffic like a tiny general. Carla had Mia for the holiday itself, which gave Nathan and Vivian time to actually unpack and set up the house. On Thanksgiving evening, after they'd assembled furniture and hung pictures and ordered pizza because neither of them had the energy to cook, they sat on the floor of their new living room surrounded by boxes. "We should probably talk about the actual wedding at some point," Vivian said, "since I've agreed to marry you, but we haven't discussed any actual details." Nathan pulled a small box from his pocket. "First things first." Vivian's breath caught. "Is that? I bought it 2 weeks ago. I was waiting for the right moment, but then I realized there's no such thing as the perfect moment. There's just us, sitting on the floor of our new house, exhausted and happy and ready to make this official." He opened the box. The ring inside was simple, a single diamond on a platinum band. elegant without being ostentatious. It was everything Nathan could afford and everything he hoped would be enough. "Vivian Hale," he said, "will you marry me?" Vivian was crying, but she was also smiling wider than Nathan had ever seen. "Yes, absolutely yes." Nathan slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. They kissed there on the floor surrounded by moving boxes and half-assembled furniture, and Nathan thought about how far they'd come, how much they'd fought for, how many times they could have walked away but chose to stay instead. "I think we should get married soon," Vivian said. "Not some big production. Just us and Mia and the people who actually matter." "How soon?" "Spring, early summer, whenever feels right." Nathan kissed her again. "Spring sounds perfect." When Mia came home from Portland on Sunday, she walked into the new house wide-eyed and curious. Nathan and Vivian gave her a tour showing her the room they'd set up. Her bed in the same position it had been at the apartment. Her dinosaurs arranged on shelves, everything familiar enough to feel safe, but new enough to feel like an adventure. "This is my room?" Mia asked, standing in the doorway. "All yours," Nathan said. "What do you think?" "It's big. Can I paint the walls?" "What color?" "Purple, with green dinosaur stickers." Vivian laughed. "Purple with green dinosaur stickers it is." Mia explored every corner, testing the windows, checking the closet, sprawling on the bed to stare at the ceiling. Then she said, "Is Vivian living here now?" Nathan and Vivian exchanged a look. "Yes," Nathan said. "Is that okay with you?" Mia sat up, considering this seriously. "Are you guys married?" "Not yet, Vivian said. "But we're going to be. Your dad asked me to marry him, and I said yes." Mia's eyes went wide. "Really? Really?" Nathan confirmed. "How do you feel about that?" Mia thought about it for a moment. Then she launched herself off the bed and hugged both of them, her small arms barely reaching around them. "I feel good about it. Really good." Nathan felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, Bug. Me too." That night, after Mia was asleep in her new purple room, Nathan and Vivian lay in their new bedroom, in their new house, in their new life. "I can't believe this is real," Vivian said quietly. "A year ago, I was engaged to someone I didn't love, running a company that was consuming my entire life, pretending I was happy. And now you're engaged to someone you do love, running a company you've learned to delegate and actually happy?" "Something like that." Vivian turned to face him. "Nathan, I know this hasn't been easy. I know we've fought for every inch of this, but I want you to know that I'd do it all again. Every hard conversation, every public judgment, every moment of doubt. It was all worth it to get here." Nathan pulled her closer. "Same. All of it." They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in months, Nathan didn't wake up anxious about what came next. He woke up grateful for what was already here. The months leading up to the wedding were surprisingly smooth. They decided on a small ceremony in May, just family and close friends, held in the backyard of their new house. No fancy venue, no elaborate planning, no performance. Just a celebration of what they'd built. Mia was flower girl, a role she took incredibly seriously. She practiced walking slowly and tossing imaginary petals for weeks. She helped Vivian pick out a dress, something simple and beautiful that made Vivian look like herself, rather than someone playing a role. She gave her opinion on flowers and cake flavors and whether they should have a DJ or just play music from someone's phone. "The phone is fine," Mia declared, "as long as we can play the dinosaur song." "There's a dinosaur song?" Vivian asked. "There's always a dinosaur song," Nathan said, resigned. Carla, surprisingly, was supportive. She and Nathan had found an uneasy peace over the past months. Not friendship, but a functional co-parenting relationship built on actually communicating and putting Mia first. When Nathan told her about the engagement, Carla had said, "She's good for you, and good for Mia. I'm happy for you." It wasn't forgiveness for the past, but it was acceptance of the present. That felt like enough. The night before the wedding, Nathan couldn't sleep. He stood in the backyard where they'd be getting married in less than 12 hours, looking at the chairs they'd set up, the flowers Vivian's team had arranged, the small arbor where they'd exchange vows. Vivian found him there, wrapped in a blanket against the cool spring air. "Can't sleep?" she asked. Too wired. Nathan turned to her. Are you nervous? Terrified, Vivian admitted. Not about marrying you. That's the easiest decision I've ever made, but about everything it represents. About stepping into this life permanently and hoping I don't mess it up. You won't mess it up. You don't know that. I know that you show up, that you're honest, that you care about the people who care about you. Nathan smiled. Those were your words, remember? About what makes someone worth loving. Vivian remembered. That first morning, over breakfast with Mia, when Nathan had tried to explain what mattered. She'd been so far from believing she could have something like this back then. I love you, she said. Tomorrow and every day after. I love you too. They stood there in the dark backyard, holding each other, ready for whatever came next. The wedding itself was perfect in its imperfection. It rained that morning, and they had to move everything inside at the last minute. The flower girl, Mia, tripped halfway down the aisle and skinned her knee, requiring a pause for bandages and reassurance. The justice of the peace forgot Nathan's middle name and had to ask twice. Someone's aunt got drunk and gave a rambling toast about the importance of compromise that made everyone uncomfortable. But Vivian looked beautiful standing across from Nathan, tears in her eyes as they said vows they'd written themselves. Mia stood beside them, holding both their hands, officially part of the ceremony. Nathan's voice cracked when he promised to love Vivian through the easy days and the hard ones, through success and failure, through everything life threw at them. Vivian promised to be honest, to show up, to build a life with him that was messy and real and worth every fight it took to get there. When the justice of the peace finally said, "You may kiss," the small crowd cheered and Mia shouted, "Finally!" which made everyone laugh. At the reception, such as it was, Nathan danced with Vivian in their living room while Mia insisted on DJing from someone's phone. They ate cake that was too sweet and drank champagne that was too cheap and talked with people they loved about nothing important. It was chaotic and loud and absolutely nothing like the wedding Vivian had been planning with Andrew, that carefully orchestrated event designed to look perfect in photographs. This was better. This was real. Late in the evening, after most of the guests had left and Mia had fallen asleep on the couch still in her flower girl dress, Nathan and Vivian stood in their kitchen doing dishes. "We're married," Vivian said, like she was testing the words. "We're married," Nathan confirmed. "Mrs. Vivian Cole. That's going to take some getting used to." "You don't have to change your name if you don't want to." "I know, but I want to. I want the name that connects me to you and Mia. I want the whole package." Nathan dried his hands and pulled her close. "What are you thinking about?" "About how different my life looks now than it did 2 years ago. About how much I fought to get here. About how worth it all of that fighting was." Vivian looked up at him. "About how you were right back at the beginning. Being safe isn't a weakness. It's the foundation everything else is built on." Nathan thought about Lauren, about Carla, about everyone who'd ever told him that being steady and reliable made him forgettable, about how wrong they'd been. "You know what I learned?" he said. "That real love isn't about being exciting or dangerous or impressive. It's about showing up. It's about being honest when it's hard. It's about choosing each other over and over, even when there are easier options." He kissed her forehead. "It's about building something that lasts, not something that just looks good." Vivian smiled. "That's very wise, Mr. Cole. I have my moments." They finished the dishes together, moving around the kitchen in the comfortable rhythm of people who'd learned each other's patterns. Then they carried Mia to her room, carefully changing her into pajamas without waking her, and stood in the doorway watching her sleep. "We're a family," Vivian whispered. "An actual, official family." "Yeah," Nathan said. "We are." 6 months later, on a random Tuesday evening, Vivian came home from work early and found Nathan and Mia making dinner together. "You're home," Nathan said, surprised. "I thought you had that late meeting." "I delegated it," Vivian said, setting down her bag. "Turns out the company doesn't fall apart when I'm not there for every single decision." "Character growth," Nathan teased. Vivian stuck her tongue out at him, which made Mia giggle. Then she noticed what they were cooking. "Is that pasta from scratch?" "Mia wanted to learn," Nathan said, "so we're learning together. It's going terribly." "It's going great," Mia protested, holding up a lumpy piece of dough. Look, I made a noodle. That's definitely a noodle, Vivian agreed diplomatically. She joined them in the kitchen, and they spent the evening making a mess, laughing at their failures, and eventually producing something that was technically edible if not exactly impressive. They ate at the kitchen table, the three of them, talking about their days and making plans for the weekend and existing in the ordinary magic of a Tuesday night at home. After Mia went to bed, Nathan and Vivian sat on the couch together, Vivian's feet in Nathan's lap, both of them too tired to do anything but exist in each other's presence. I have something to tell you, Vivian said. Nathan looked at her, reading the nervousness in her expression. Okay. I've been thinking about stepping back from the company, not leaving entirely, but maybe transitioning to more of a board role, letting the team I've built actually run things. She paused. I want more time for this, for us, for the life we're building. Nathan was quiet, processing. Is this what you want, or what you think you should want? It's what I want, Vivian said firmly. I've proven everything I needed to prove. I built something that works, something that lasts. And now I want to build something else, a life that isn't just about work and achievement and proving my worth. I want time. I want presence. I want to be here for the random Tuesday evenings making terrible pasta, not always rushing in late or distracted. What would you do instead? I don't know yet. Maybe some consulting, maybe teaching, maybe just being a stepmom and a wife and figuring out who I am when I'm not performing the role of CEO. Vivian smiled. That's terrifying and exciting in equal measure. Nathan pulled her closer. Then you should do it. Life's too short to keep doing things that don't feed you. What about you? Vivian asked. Are you happy? With work, with life, with all of this? Nathan thought about it honestly. Yeah, I am. I've got a job I'm good at, even if it's not glamorous. I've got a daughter who's thriving. I've got a wife I love who makes me want to be better. That's more than enough. Just enough? Or exactly enough? Exactly enough, Nathan said. I don't need more. I just need this. They sat there in comfortable silence, and Nathan thought about the journey that had brought them here. About a woman sitting alone in a restaurant and a man who'd had the courage to sit down across from her. About all the ways they could have walked away but chose to stay instead. About building something real in a world that constantly pushed them toward performance and perfection. About how being safe and steady and honest had turned out to be the most radical thing he could offer. About how love wasn't about being unforgettable in the way he'd once thought. It was about being chosen, every day, by someone who saw you clearly and loved you anyway. 2 years after that first night at Ascend, Nathan took Vivian back to the restaurant. It was their anniversary, not of the wedding, but of the moment everything started. The hostess seated them at table 14, the same table where Vivian had sat alone waiting for someone who never came, where Nathan had made the choice that changed both their lives. You planned this, Vivian said, looking around. I called ahead, asked for the specific table. They thought I was crazy, but they made it work. They ordered wine, ordered food neither of them would really remember later. And then Nathan pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. I wrote something, he said. For tonight, if you want to hear it. Always. Nathan unfolded the paper, cleared his throat, and read. 2 years ago, I watched you sit alone at this table, and I saw something in your face that I recognized. The exhaustion of always having to be strong. The loneliness of success. The weight of other people's expectations. And I walked over here not because I thought I could save you, but because I thought maybe we could save each other. I was right. You didn't need saving from your life. You needed permission to want something different. And I didn't need to become someone more exciting or impressive. I needed to trust that being steady was enough. We've spent 2 years building something that didn't exist before. A family, a home, a love that's messy and imperfect and absolutely real. And I want you to know that if I had to do it all again, if I had to face every hard moment and every judgment and every obstacle, I would. Because this, he gestured between them, around the restaurant, to the life they'd built. This is the best thing I've ever been part of. You are the best thing I've ever been part of. Thank you for sitting alone at this table. Thank you for letting me join you. Thank you for choosing this life with me. Vivian was crying openly now, not caring who saw. I love you so much. I love you too. They finished their meal holding hands across the table, occasionally laughing through tears, talking about nothing and everything. And when they left the restaurant and walked out into the Seattle night, they did it together, two people who'd found each other in the middle of their separate chaos and built something lasting from the wreckage. 3 years later, Mia stood in her purple bedroom, now decorated with posters of planets and astronauts instead of dinosaurs, and asked her dad a question. Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if you hadn't talked to Vivian that night? Nathan, helping her pack for a school trip, paused. Sometimes. Why? Emma's parents are getting divorced. Her dad said sometimes people just aren't meant to be together, no matter how hard they try. Mia folded a shirt carefully. But you and Vivian had to try really hard, and you still made it work. How did you know it was worth it? Nathan sat down on her bed. We didn't know. Not at the beginning. We just knew that what we had felt real and honest and worth fighting for. And we kept choosing that even when it would have been easier to walk away. But how did you know it was real? Because it made us better, because we could be ourselves, messy and imperfect and sometimes wrong, and still be loved. Because we built something together instead of just trying to fit into each other's existing lives. Nathan smiled. Love isn't about finding someone perfect, Bug. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be honest, who shows up, who fights for the relationship even when it's hard. Mia nodded slowly. I think I get it, like how Vivian learned to make slime even though she's a CEO. And you learn to cook fancy pasta even though you're bad at it. Exactly like that. And then you both learned how to be a family with me even though you didn't know how at first. Yes, Nathan said, pulling his daughter into a hug. We did. That evening, at dinner with Vivian, Nathan told her about the conversation. She's wise, that kid, Vivian said. Reminds me of someone. She gets it from you. She gets it from both of us. Vivian reached across the table for Nathan's hand. Do you ever regret it? Any of it? Never. You. Not once. Vivian smiled. Best impulsive decision I ever made, letting you sit down at my table. Best impulsive decision I ever made was walking over there in the first place. They sat there in their kitchen, in their home, in their life, and Nathan thought about how far they'd come, about how many times they could have given up but didn't, about how the single father once dismissed as too ordinary had become the husband and father he'd always wanted to be, about how the CEO, who'd seemed to have everything, had found the one thing success couldn't buy, a love that was steady, brave, and absolutely real. About how sometimes the greatest romance isn't the one that looks impressive from the outside. It's the one that feels true from the inside. The one built on showing up and being honest and choosing each other through the hard days and the easy ones. The one that makes room for imperfection and growth and becoming better together than you ever were apart. And sitting there with his wife and daughter, in the home they'd created together, Nathan Cole finally understood what he'd been too afraid to believe all those years ago, that being safe wasn't the opposite of being unforgettable. It was the foundation that made everything else possible. That steady love, the kind that showed up, that stayed, that chose honesty over performance and truth over appearances. That was the love worth remembering. That was the love worth fighting for. That was the love that lasted. And in the end, that was the only kind of love that really mattered.